Chapter 2317. 2317 Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend Painting. 2317 Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend Painting. The plain-robed woman frowned and fell into deep thought. Ever since Avicii existed, it had experienced the longevity era and countless years had passed. For such a long time, countless experts were buried inside, but no living being could come out alive. In other words, Avicii was indeed an unimaginable treasure trove. There were countless treasures left behind by those experts alone. The maidservant said, "Now that one can enter and exit Avicii freely, I wonder how many experts will swarm in and who will be able to obtain the opportunities within." "It's not that simple." The plain-robed woman shook her head gently. Avicii was established by the infinite great emperor. Even if it was damaged by Emperor Bo-Soon, it's definitely not a friendly place. Not many people can defend against the living beings of hell that are born within. The maidservant asked blankly, "What living beings of hell?" The plain-robed woman did not explain. She closed the ancient book in her hands and placed it on the bamboo chair beside her. The words Infinite Era were written on the front of the ancient book. This book was not a cultivation technique or secret skill. Instead, it was a biography that recorded many major events of the upper world during the Infinite Era and some legends of experts. Among them, the most famous was naturally the infinite great emperor who founded an era. Therefore, the plain-robed woman's understanding of the infinite great emperor far surpassed others. Rising, the plain-robed woman paced back and forth, murmuring in deep thought, "There's something strange about this." "What do you mean? What's strange about it?" The maidservant asked again. The plain-robed woman frowned. "This happened 1,000 years ago. Why is there only news of it now?" The birth of Emperor Bo-Soon is not a small matter. The implications are too great. The news must have been suppressed by the pure land of the Buddhist monasteries. The maidservant replied. Since it was suppressed, why would such news suddenly spread? The plain-robed woman asked instead. The maidservant shrugged her shoulders and shook her head. The plain-robed woman continued, "Furthermore, that's Avicii after all. It's a forbidden ground that even great emperors are wary of. It has existed for so many years without any problems. How can it be damaged by the power of Emperor Bo-Soon?" The maidservant said, "Perhaps it's because it's been too long and can't withstand the corrosion of time." The plain-robed woman shook her head gently. Just as she was about to speak, her heart skipped a beat as she thought of something. If the hell suppression tripod is in that person's hands, that means that there's no hell suppression tripod in Avicii. The plain-robed woman muttered to herself, "In that case, it makes sense for cracks to appear in Avicii after Emperor Bo-Soon charged out." "Princess, what are you talking about?" The maidservant asked curiously. "What hell suppression tripod? What person?" "It's nothing." The plain-robed woman changed the topic and asked, "Is Yun Ting still in seclusion?" "Yes." The maidservant nodded. The plain-robed woman said deeply, "I'm prepared to make a trip to the pure land of bliss. If he comes out of seclusion, don't tell him about this." "Ah!" The maidservant snapped out of her stupor and exclaimed, "Princess, are you going to Avicii? Didn't you just say that it was very dangerous there?" "It's indeed dangerous, but I still have to make a trip." The plain-robed woman said, "I'm curious and puzzled about the life of the infinite great emperor. Perhaps I can only find the answer in Avicii." The maidservant said with a worried expression, "Princess, please bring more people this time round." "There's no need. I'll head there alone." The plain-robed woman said, "If I truly encounter danger in a place like Avicii, it wouldn't matter how many people are by my side. Instead, they'll only lose their lives for nothing. However, once the news spreads, experts will definitely gather there. At that time, who knows what sort of conflicts will break out as they fight for the treasures. It's way too dangerous." The maidservant continued. "No matter what, Avicii is one of the most dangerous forbidden grounds in history. At the Emperor realm, one has a long lifespan and it's difficult for them to be tempted by most treasures." The plain-robed woman was extremely calm as she analyzed, therefore, they won't take the risk personally. As for Immortal King experts, they might not be in a hurry to enter either. Most likely, they won't act rashly and will just wait and see. I think that the cultivators who entered Avicii this time round should be Heaven Immortals and perfected Immortal experts. At my level, I'm not afraid of anything. Even if I can't beat them, I can escape unscathed. Although the plain-robed woman decided to head to Avicii, she did not do it on impulse. Instead, she analyzed the dangers and possible situations before making a move. Furthermore, she knew a lot about the infinite great emperor. That was the reason why she was confident. When the plain-robed woman saw that the maidservant at the side was still worried, she could not help but smile. Don't worry, I'm only going this time round to find some answers about the infinite great emperor. I'm not going to fight with them for treasures. Even if they kill one another out of blind greed for the treasures, it has nothing to do with meal. Heaven and Earth Academy. Legacy Ground. A man and woman stood in front of a cave abode. From afar, they looked like a golden couple. The man's figure was tall and straight, like an unsheathed sword with a sharp edge. His gaze was sharp with a faint cold glint, and he had an extraordinary aura. The woman had a fairy-like appearance and merely stood quietly with her clothes fluttering in the wind. She was extremely compatible with the surrounding flora, mountains in the distance, clouds in the skies and the butterflies dancing on her shoulders, forming an indescribably beautiful painting. The man was a legacy disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy, Sword Immortal Yu Hua. The woman was none other than the painting Immortal, Mo Qing. Junior sister, why are you so stubborn and insist on going to Avicii? Sword Immortal Yu Hua frowned. Avicii is way too dangerous. Even if there are cracks, you'll most likely die if you enter. Given your status and nobleness, there's no need for you to take such a huge risk. Fairy Mo Qing remained silent with an indifferent expression. Sword Immortal Yu Hua continued, Junior sister, I'll try my best to help you get anything you want as long as you're willing to say it. Thank you, Senior Brother Yu Hua. What is it? Just tell me. Sword Immortal Yu Hua said proudly. Fairy Mo Qing said, Senior Yu Daozi's Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting. Sword Immortal Yu Hua's expression froze. Fairy Mo Qing continued. Yu Daozi was once a senior of the academy. The Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting contains 4 peak masterpieces of his. It also contains his drawing techniques and Tao of drawing. Actually, a large part of the reason why I joined the academy back then was because I liked Senior Yu Daozi's painting. However, he has already died for many years and the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting has long been lost. Sword Immortal Yu Hua said helplessly, There are countless paintings in the world. I can find other good works for you. There's no need for that. Fairy Mo Qing shook her head gently. Back then, in order to complete the 4th ghost diagram, Senior Yu Daozi headed to Avicii. He never came out again and died within. As such, the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting should be buried inside as well. Chapter 2318. 2318 Blood Butterfly Legend. 2318 Blood Butterfly Legend. When Sword Immortal Yu Hua saw Fairy Mo Qing's determination, his expression darkened and a grim look flashed through his eyes. He believed that Fairy Mo Qing should definitely know his intentions. However, for so many years, this junior sister had always been indifferent to him and merely maintained the politeness as a fellow sect mate. There was no chance for their relationship to advance at all. When Sword Immortal Yu Hua thought of Mo Qing's personality, he was in no hurry and did not force her. However, over the years, the rumors about Fairy Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu had long spread everywhere, causing Sword Immortal Yu Hua to be vexed. His patience gradually disappeared as well. He did not want to wait any longer. Sword Immortal Yu Hua turned around and stood in front of Fairy Mo Qing. He looked at her affectionately and said gently, Junior sister, over the years, there have been many bad rumors about you in the outside world. I'm extremely angry and my heart aches for you. There's a way to resolve this matter. As long as we implore our master to step in and facilitate our marriage as Tao companions, we'll announce it to the world and send invitations. Naturally, we'll be able to clear your name and those rumors will be dispelled. Fairy Mo Qing smiled gently. Thank you for your kind intentions, Senior Brother Yu Hua. However, there's no need for that. I rarely go out and I specialize in my painting Tao in the mountains and rivers. No matter how many rumors there are in the outside world, I don't care. I'm innocent. Fairy Mo Qing had made her intentions extremely clear. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was proud. It was already rare for him to take the initiative to express his intentions. Now that he was rejected, It was naturally not good for him to continue pestering. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was silent for a moment before suddenly asking coldly, "Junior sister, are you really heading to Avicii for the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting?" "Of course." Fairy Mo Qing was slightly surprised and asked, "What else do you think, senior brother Yu Hua?" "Fu." Sword Immortal Yu Hua turned to look at the forest in the distance and smiled mockingly, saying casually, "Nothing much. Since you've already made up your mind and I can't persuade you further, I can only wish you a safe return." Sword Immortal Yu Hua cupped his fists and said another sentence before flicking his sleeves to leave expressionlessly. Fairy Mo Qing looked at Sword Immortal Yu Hua's back view and sighed internally. Although she was naive, she could sense Sword Immortal Yu Hua's intentions. However, she had always only regarded Sword Immortal Yu Hua as a senior brother of the same sect. Now that she rejected senior brother Yu Hua, he must be extremely sad and disappointed. At that thought, Fairy Mo Qing felt conflicted as well. "Little butterfly, did I do something wrong?" Fairy Mo Qing lowered her head slightly and murmured, "Perhaps senior brother Yu Hua is the person I'm destined to be with. Perhaps I should become his Tao companion. Actually, senior brother Yu Hua is not a bad person either." "He's bad. He's a hypocrite." Little Butterfly's voice was crisp with a hint of disdain. "Even though he knew that you were heading to Avicii, he did not dare to travel with you. If someone truly cares about you, why would they let you head to a dangerous place alone?" Fairy Mo Qing shook her head gently. "It's not his fault. We're only from the same sect after all. How can I let others take the risk for me? In any case, this person isn't good," Little Butterfly said crisply. After a moment of silence, Fairy Mo Qing gazed into the distance with a lost expression and asked softly, "What is love? Why can't I sense it? You're obsessed with paintings every day and rarely interact with others. Naturally, you can't feel the love and affection of the mortal world." Seemingly experienced, Little Butterfly said, "If you travel more and meet more cultivators, you'll definitely be able to meet someone you like." "Someone I like?" Fairy Mo Qing tilted her head slightly in confusion. She had only liked mountains, rivers, plants and paintings. However, she had never liked anyone and did not know what it felt like. "It means someone who can move your heart," Little Butterfly explained. "If you can meet someone that makes your heart skip a beat and you miss him day and night, that's because you like him." Fairy Mo Qing recalled carefully. Up till this point of her cultivation, she had truly not met anyone who could move her heart. However, there were many paintings that moved her. "Little Butterfly, do you have anyone you like? How do you know so much?" Fairy Mo Qing asked with a smile. "I don't," Little Butterfly replied. "I only heard about these from others as well." Fairy Mo Qing smiled and chatted with Little Butterfly for a while, feeling much better. Normally, she lived and cultivated alone without any immortal servants. She was also used to being alone and liked the feeling of silence. Over the years, with Little Butterfly's company, although it was a little noisier, she smiled much more as well. "By the way, Little Butterfly, there's something you haven't explained to me." Fairy Mo Qing asked reproachfully, "Why do you keep coming to the inner sect for no reason?" After she saved this ice butterfly, she was cold to everyone and kept strangers at bay. However, there was one inner sect disciple she did not resist. It was said that the inner sect disciple had already been accepted as an in-name disciple by her master. Once he entered the perfected one realm, he could join her master as her junior brother. There's an aura about that person that feels very familiar, Little Butterfly said hesitantly. "You've grown a liking for him, huh?" Fairy Mo Qing asked jokingly. "No," Little Butterfly explained hurriedly. "That person has an aura that's extremely similar to a demon empress of our race. It's very strange." "Demon empress?" Fairy Mo Qing was surprised. Those were high and mighty existences that stood at the peak of the upper sect. How could they be related to a single inner sect disciple? Furthermore, these were emperor experts of the demon race that were far away in the great wilderness. "That demon empress is the pride of our race and is the expert I respect, admire and idolize the most. I'm even willing to die for her." At the mention of this demon empress, Little Butterfly's eyes shone with a fanatical glint and she was incomparably proud. Every single emperor expert will be respected by their clansmen. Fairy Mo Qing nodded.
No.
Little Butterfly shook her head. She's different from the other emperors. She's the pride and hope of our race, in fact, the entire demon race. For some reason, Little Butterfly seemed extremely emotional at the mention of this demon empress. Our butterfly race is incomparably weak from the moment of our birth. Little Butterfly said, although some butterflies with powerful bloodlines such as the butterfly sovereign lineage appeared during this period of time, they still can't fight against other living beings. Fairy Mo Qing was no stranger to these things. The butterfly race was indeed the weakest race and was far inferior to the human race. Little Butterfly continued, however, this demon empress single-handedly changed the status of our butterfly race among the 10,000 races, allowing us to occupy a place in the great wilderness and even the upper world. As long as this demon empress of our race is around, the butterfly race will never be a weak race. Fairy Mo Qing opened her mouth slightly with a shocked expression. Indeed, the other emperors could not be compared to someone who could single-handedly change the status of a race within the 10,000 races. Chapter 2319. 2319 Perfect Strategy. 2319 Perfect Strategy. After Sword Immortal Yu Hua left Mo Qing's cave abode, he returned home. Along the way, his expression was cold and the sharpness he exuded almost tore through the void. When a few legacy disciples saw Sword Immortal Yu Hua, they did not dare to advance and merely cupped their fists before retreating far away, afraid that they would offend him. Before long, Sword Immortal Yu Hua arrived at his cave abode where another legacy disciple, Xueqi, had been waiting for a long time. Senior brother, what happened? Xueqi went forward and asked when he saw something amiss with Sword Immortal Yu Hua's expression. Sword Immortal Yu Hua remained silent and walked straight towards the cave abode with a dark expression. The door opened on its own and Xueqi followed hurriedly. Before returning to the cave abode and taking a seat, an immortal servant had long prepared tea. He poured it carefully and placed it in front of the two legacy disciples before retreating with his head lowered. Sword Immortal Yu Hua picked up the fragrant tea in front of him and drank it in one gulp. After a long silence he said, "Junior sister Mo Qing is going to Avicii." Xueqi said, "I've also heard about the news of Avicii." This time round, many desperados were alarmed. Cultivators from the Pure Land of Bliss, 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Fiend Domain are all going to make a move. However, Avicii is not a friendly place and is notorious. As one of the 4 great fairies, there's no need for senior sister Mo Qing to take the risk, right? I also advised her not to take the risk, but she insisted on going. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was a little angry. Although she's usually quiet and meek, her personality is not weak at all. I'm her senior brother but she doesn't take heed to my advice at all. What's in Avicii? Why does senior sister Mo Qing insist on heading there? Xueqi asked again. She said that she's looking for Yu Daozi's Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting. Sword Immortal Yu Hua sneered and replied. That's possible. Senior sister Mo Qing is obsessed with the Tao of painting. For the sake of the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting, she might take the risk to explore Avicii. Humph. Sword Immortal Yu Hua's expression darkened as he said coldly, "Do you really think that she's heading to Avicii for the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting?" Isn't it? Xueqi was stunned for a moment with a lost expression. Sword Immortal Yu Hua said coldly, "Yang Ruoxu has just been crippled and his essence spirit is severely injured. Junior sister Mo Qing must be going to Avicii to look for the Sraka fruit to heal him." A look of realization flashed through Xueqi's eyes. Sword Immortal Yu Hua clenched his fists and said coldly, "She thinks that I can't guess the reason and is even trying to hide it." "Senior brother, what should we do then?" Xueqi asked, "Should we get Qing Yun and the others to do something and kill Yang Ruoxu secretly?" "There's no need." Sword Immortal Yu Hua sneered. "The Ashoka tree has been destroyed for so many years. Finding the Sraka fruit in Avicii is even more difficult than searching for a needle in a haystack. I'll wait here in the academy for her to return. I want to see her in despair." Suddenly, Sword Immortal Yu Hua laughed and said coldly, "Junior sister Mo Qing returning empty-handed and Yang Ruoxu severely injured. The both of them will be forced to part ways through life and death. There's no way I can miss such a good show." Looking at Sword Immortal Yu Hua's smile, Xueqi suddenly felt a chill. Senior brother Yu Hua's hatred for senior sister Mo Qing had already exceeded his imagination. He could not understand why senior brother Yu Hua would hate senior sister Mo Qing so much in the blink of an eye and harbor such vicious thoughts when he was so enamored with her previously. In the inner sect of the academy, in a cave abode, Feng Qingyun, Tang Peng and Yan Bingying were gathered here. Senior brother Feng, I heard that Yang Ruoxu was traveling outside and was a busybody, fighting for injustice. In the end, he was severely injured and almost died outside. Tang Peng was a little excited. I heard that he's lying in his cave abode like a dead dog. He's already crippled. Now, we don't have to make a move. That's right. Even if senior brother Feng had attacked, they could only spar on the sword discourse arena where life and death battles were not allowed. At most, Yang Ruoxu would be defeated and taught a lesson. Yan Bingying said, however, there aren't so many rules outside. It said that his essence spirit was severely injured and it's already lucky that he managed to survive. Feng Qingyun did not say anything the entire time and merely smiled indifferently. As he listened to their discussion, a smug look flashed through his eyes. It was only then that he laughed and suddenly said, "Do you guys really think that he survived merely through luck?" Ha! Tang Peng was stunned. Before he could react, Feng Qingyun continued, "Do you guys really think that Yang Ruoxu's accident was just an accident?" Tang Peng's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Feng Qingyun with widened eyes and whispered, "Could it be that you were the one who attacked this time round, senior brother?" "I didn't do it personally. I merely planned it." Feng Qingyun said, "The people who attacked this time round were also top-tier experts of the major factions, Pang Yi of the Pang clan, Prince Yuan Zhua and his execution guards, Heaven Immortal Gui Yuan of Flying Immortal Sect and Prince Ye Tianhong of the Yan Yang Immortal Kingdom. I merely informed them of Yang Ruoxu's location and watched from the sidelines as they attacked." Pausing for a moment, Feng Qingyun laughed again. "I have to say that that battle was very exciting." Yan Bingying frowned slightly without saying anything. Although she was extremely negative towards Yang Ruoxu because of Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the others, she was still resistant to inviting outsiders to deal with her fellow sect mates. On the other hand, Tang Peng was excited. "So, you were the one plotting everything behind the scenes, senior brother. It's no wonder that there was such a huge commotion. Since senior brother Yu Hua requested it, I naturally had to do my best." Feng Qingyun smiled calmly. Tang Peng was puzzled and asked, "Senior brother Feng, how did Yang Ruoxu manage to return alive with so many experts attacking?" "It was my intention." Feng Qingyun smiled and beat around the bush without continuing. "Why?" Tang Peng thought for a long time but could not figure it out and asked with a frown. Yan Bingying said, "Perhaps senior brother Feng spared his life on account of our relationship as fellow sect mates." Feng Qingyun shook his head gently. "I allowed him to return because I wanted to deal with another person." "Su Zimo." Tang Peng snapped out of his stupor and blurted, "That's right." Feng Qingyun nodded. "Do you have a plan ready?" Tang Peng asked. Although he realized that Feng Qingyun wanted to deal with Su Zimo, he could not think of a way to make use of this opportunity. Feng Qingyun said, "Su Zimo was accepted as an in-name disciple by the sect master and his status is much higher than Yang Ruoxu. If a large force was mobilized in Divine Firmament mainland to ambush him, I'm afraid the sect master will sense it. Therefore, in order to deal with Su Zimo, it's best if the location is as far away from Divine Firmament Immortal Domain as possible. Yang Ruoxu's essence spirit is severely injured and it won't be long before Su Zimo receives the news. There are extremely few immortal herbs that can heal essence spirit injuries and the Soraka fruit is one of them." When he heard that, Tang Peng's eyes lit up. He continued Feng Qingyun's words, "Recently, there's news from the Pure Land of Bliss that a crack has appeared in Avicii and there are countless treasures inside. The Soraka fruit might be there. Therefore your goal is to make use of Yang Ruoxu's essence spirit injuries to lure Su Zimo to Avicii in order to get rid of him there." Feng Qingyun smiled without saying anything as a silent acknowledgement. Tang Peng could not help but clap and praise. This is an interconnected trap, killing two birds with one stone. While dealing with Yang Ruoxu, a trap is set for Su Zimo to prevent future troubles. Senior brother, your plan is truly perfect and well thought out. I think your wisdom is practically comparable to the sect master. Chapter 2320. 2320 Out of Seclusion. 2320 Out of Seclusion. Tang Peng's words made Feng Qingyun delighted. The sect master of the academy was incomparably intelligent and could see through heaven and earth, knowing everything. Almost every disciple of the academy admired the sect master. At the very least, the fact that Tang Peng compared him to the sect master meant that he was definitely qualified to be a personal disciple of the sect master. Of course, on the surface, Feng Qingyun pretended to be calm and said humbly, "I'm far inferior to the magnificence of the sect master." Yan Bingying had a strange expression and hesitated. "What do you want to say, junior sister?" Given Feng Qingyun's sharpness, he noticed Yan Bingying's abnormality from the corner of his eye and asked with a smile. Yan Bingying hesitated for a moment before saying, "I feel that it's not appropriate for outsiders to kill our fellow sect mates." Ever since she witnessed Su Zimo pass the Tao Heart Stairs trial and condense the 10th stone step 1,000 years ago, her impression of him had changed significantly. Yan Bingying continued, "Furthermore, we don't have any deep feud with senior brother Su. Senior brother Yu Hua merely asked us to deal with Yang Ruoxu. There's no need." Fu. Suddenly, Feng Qingyun chuckled. "Senior brother Su, huh? Are you very close to him, junior sister?" "No." Yan Bingying's expression changed slightly as she shook her head hurriedly. "We haven't confirmed who did senior brother Pang's death yet. The greatest possibility is still Yang Ruoxu," Yan Bingying said. Tang Peng harumphed coldly. "It has something to do with Su Zimo as well." "Stop arguing." Feng Qingyun was a little impatient and hollered softly, "Su Zimo has offended too many people. It has nothing to do with us if he dies outside. Senior brother, I didn't make it last time. I can't miss it this time round." Tang Peng grit his teeth. "I'm going to Avicii too. I want to see Su Zimo's demise with my own eyes. That's the only way I'll feel good. Su Zimo was the one who embarrassed me in the previous Tao Heart Stairs trial." Pausing for a moment, he seemed worried again. "Senior brother, Avicii is way too dangerous. Isn't it too risky to set up an ambush inside?" Feng Qingyun smiled. "Why are you so dumb? Our goal is merely to lure Su Zimo away from Divine Firmament mainland. Why would we have to wait till he's in Avicii to attack?" "I got it." Tang Peng was delighted. "Senior brothers, if there's nothing else, I'll make a move first." Feeling a little frustrated, Yan Bingying cupped her fists and bid farewell to Feng Qingyun. Feng Qingyun nodded and did not ask her to stay. After Yan Bingying left, Tang Peng's expression darkened as he asked softly, "Senior brother, will senior sister Yan report this matter to the seniors of the sect?" Feng Qingyun said indifferently, "Evidence is everything. If she doesn't have any evidence, what can she report?" "That's good." Tang Peng nodded. "Senior sister Yan seems to have changed a lot over the years. She's not so close to us anymore." Fu. Feng Qingyun smiled mockingly. "Everything depends on what she chooses. If she chooses to stand on Su Zimo's side, it only means that she's a stupid woman. Senior brother, will anything go wrong this time round?" Tang Peng was worried again. There's something sinister about that Su Zimo. Previously, he was filled with confidence regarding the Tao Heart Stairs, but in the end, he suffered a huge loss. A legacy disciple was crippled just like that, and even the 9 great elders and sect master of the academy were alarmed. Now that he thought about it, he felt a sense of trepidation. This time round, the Pang clan, Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, Yen Yang Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect joined forces. Feng Qingyun said in a deep voice, "Pang Yi, Prince Yuan Zhua, Xie Tianhong and Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan alone are 4 grade 9 Heaven Immortals. Any one of them can kill Su Zimo as easily as stepping on an ant. Furthermore, these people will bring many trusted aides with them. What can go wrong?" Pausing for a moment, Feng Qingyun continued, "Don't worry, these people have a deep feud with Su Zimo and want him dead even more than us. I won't be surprised even if they invite a perfected immortal to hold down the situation." "Senior brother, are you not going this time round?" Tang Peng asked. "A group of grade 9 Heaven Immortals grouping up against a grade 1 Heaven Immortal. What's there to see? I'm not interested." Feng Qingyun shrugged and pouted. "Heh, I'll join the crowd when the time comes." Tang Peng grinned with anticipation in his eyes. In a cave abode, Su Zimo let out a long breath and opened his eyes. After entering the Heaven Essence realm, his cultivation speed slowed down significantly. For example, Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping joined the Inner Sect at the same time as him. In fact, there were even some disciples who joined the Inner Sect hundreds or thousands of years earlier but could not cultivate to level 2 of the Heaven Essence realm. As for Su Zimo, he had already cultivated to the peak of Grade 2 Heaven Immortal with his Green Lotus True Body, Divine Dragon Pill, Essence Spirit Liquid and other supreme grade cultivation resources. Although the Grade 11 Green Lotus True Body absorbed Heaven and Earth Essence Chi quickly, the consumption of cultivation resources was unimaginable. If not for the fact that he had a large amount of cultivation resources, it would not even be enough for the Green Lotus True Body to cultivate for 1,000 years. Cultivating in the Heaven Essence realm had clearly become much more difficult. If he merely stayed in seclusion all year round, it would be difficult for him to break through multiple realms in succession like before. Now that Su Zimo had cultivated to the peak of a Grade 2 Heaven Immortal, he had encountered a bottleneck and lingered for many years without breaking through. It was not his fault. Even for a Heaven-grade sect like Heaven and Earth Academy, most Inner Sect disciples would never be able to advance to the perfected Immortal realm for the rest of their lives. Cultivators who could become perfected Immortals were all filled with talent, opportunities, fortune, perseverance and various other karma. None of those factors could be done without, and no one had a smooth journey. In the past few days, Lu Ping and Princess Scarlet Rainbow came to his cave abode many times. Something seemed to have happened. Today, Lu Ping was loitering outside once again. When Su Zimo saw that he could not break through the bottleneck for the time being, he did not continue cultivating and was prepared to head out to take a look. "Junior brother Lu, is there anything?" Su Zimo pushed the door open and asked softly. Because Lu Ping inherited the body of the willow tree, even after 1,000 years, he still looked like a child with a few jade green pigtails on his head. Lu Ping hesitated for a moment before saying, "Senior brother Su, something happened to senior brother Yang." "Yang Ruoxu." Su Zimo's expression changed slightly. In Heaven and Earth Academy, the only cultivator with the surname Yang that he knew was Yang Ruoxu. "Yes," Lu Ping said, "I heard that senior brother Yang was traveling outside and was indignant about something. In the end, he got into a conflict and was surrounded. Given senior brother Yang's capabilities, who can hurt him?" Su Zimo frowned and asked as he walked towards Yang Ruoxu's cave abode. "I heard that there were experts from Flying Immortal Sect and the Yen Yang Immortal Kingdom." Lu Ping said, however, "They're all Grade 9 Heaven Immortals. Although they joined forces to attack, it was not considered bullying as their cultivation realms are similar. It's not easy for the Academy to step in for this matter either." "How are his injuries?" Su Zimo asked again. "He's severely injured. His essence spirit is severely injured and even the sect master can't treat it. He's most likely going to be crippled in the future, sigh." Lu Ping sighed. Su Zimo's expression darkened and he remained silent. Back at the Immortal Sect selection, if Yang Ruoxu had not withstood the pressure and even fought against Zither Immortal Meng Yao, he would have died a long time ago. Yang Ruoxu was also the one who stepped in for the conflict in the Outer Sect and endured a lot of pressure and hostility. He was indebted to Yang Ruoxu. Now that Yang Ruoxu was in trouble, Su Zimo would definitely not sit by idly. Chapter 2321 2321 Human Nature 2321 Human Nature. Before long, Su Zimo and Lu Ping arrived at Yang Ruoxu's cave abode. Not far away, a red light sped over it was Princess Scarlet Rainbow. "Zimo, I heard that you're out of seclusion so I came over right away." "Indeed you're here." Princess Scarlet Rainbow came forward and said. With a heavy heart, Su Zimo merely nodded slightly as a form of greeting. The three of them turned and looked at a cave abode not far away. In just a few days, the cave abode became dilapidated and cold. There were no immortal servants or Dao children waiting nearby. The medicinal field in the vicinity was trampled probably by a spirit beast or immortal pet, but no one took care of it. Inner Sect disciples could choose 100 immortal servants or Dao children to help them deal with trivial matters. However, Su Zimo did not see a single Dao child of Yang Ruoxu along the way. Su Zimo pushed the door open and entered. The moment he entered the cave abode, He smelled a strong medicinal scent mixed with a hint of blood. The cave abode was dark and no one even lit any candles. Su Zimo's expression darkened as he continued forward. Is someone here? Right then, a question sounded from ahead with a weak aura. The moment the sentence was said, a violent cough could be heard. Young master, don't get up. I'll go take a look. Right on the heels of that was a flurry of sounds. Before long, a Dao child ran out. His hair was disheveled and he was covered in blood. He looked exhausted and must not have slept for a few days. You guys are. The Dao child spoke. I'm Su Zimo. I'm here to visit senior brother Yang. Su Zimo said in a deep voice. Ah! The Dao child was stunned for a moment before reacting. He seemed to have heard of the name Su Zimo before as he bowed to the three of them hurriedly. Greetings, exalted immortals. Please follow me. The Dao child could not be considered as a disciple of the academy, and was merely an immortal servant. When he saw disciples of the academy, he had to address them respectfully as exalted immortals. Su Zimo and the other two followed the Dao child. After dozens of feet, they saw a jade bed in front of them with a man lying on it. His face was withered and yellow, and his life force was weak. It was Yang Ruoxu. Young master, you've got visitors. The Dao child ran to Yang Ruoxu's bed and knelt down, crying softly with a choked voice. Apart from Su Zimo and the other two, no one else had visited Yang Ruoxu in the past few days. Nobody even bothered to put on a pretense of friendliness. That was the reason why the Dao child felt a sense of sadness when he said that. I heard them. Yang Ruoxu smiled. Help me up. The Dao child stood up and supported Yang Ruoxu. He sat up and leaned against the head of the bed. Where are the other immortal servants? With a dark expression, Su Zimo asked with a frown, why are you the only one? Humph. When he heard that, the Dao child suddenly became agitated and said angrily, they abandoned our young master and left to look for other backers. Don't say that. Yang Ruoxu smiled faintly. I was the one who dismissed them. It's difficult for me to recover from my serious injuries and I don't have long to live. If they follow me, it'll only be a burden to them. However, you're in difficult times right now, young master. How can they abandon you and leave just like that? Young master, you treat us so well usually. You give us your spirit pills and essence spirit stones and let us cultivate with you. You even explain and impart the Tao to us, never once looking down on us because of our backgrounds. At that point, the Dao child was already sobbing. He pursed his lips and tried his best to hold back his tears. Yang Ruoxu said, I know that it doesn't feel good. Since that's the case, why would I look down on and mock you guys? At that point, Princess Scarlet Rainbow's heart skipped a beat. She turned her head and her eyes reddened as she sighed internally. Human nature had many facades, both warm and cold. Yang Ruoxu was an upright person and did not like to form cliques. Coupled with the fact that he was from the lower worlds, he was isolated in the academy and did not have many friends. Due to Sword Immortal Yu Hua, other cultivators were not willing to get too close to him over the years. Now that Yang Ruoxu was in trouble, no one would come to visit him. However, the immortal servants and Dao children that followed Yang Ruoxu benefited the most from him usually. The fact that they had now left him was heart-wrenching. Yang Ruoxu reached out and wiped away the tears on the Dao child's face gently, saying softly, Don't cry. You're still with me and haven't left. All right. The Dao child nodded vigorously. Don't worry, young master. As long as I'm not dead, I'll always guard you. Su Zimo walked forward and caressed the Dao child's forehead gently. The Dao child's eyelids felt heavy and he fell asleep in a daze. Su Zimo noticed that the Dao child had not slept for many days and was extremely exhausted. That was the reason why he released a dermic art to let him rest. Thank you. Yang Ruoxu nodded slightly. Junior brother Su. Just as Yang Ruoxu spoke, he seemed to have thought of something. You've already been accepted as an in-name disciple by the Sect master. I should address you as senior brother Su. There's no need for that between us. Su Zimo said, Brother Yang, if you don't mind, we can just address each other as brothers. Yang Ruoxu hesitated for a moment before smiling. All right, I don't have long to live anyway. As such, I won't cause too much trouble for you. What's going on? Su Zimo asked in a deep voice. Yang Ruoxu was silent for a long time before shaking his head. Forget it, there's no need to mention the past. I heard someone from the Pang clan attacked. Was it because of Pang Yu's death? Su Zimo asked. No. Yang Ruoxu said. It was just a conflict that happened by chance and I was weaker than them. There's no one to blame. Yang Ruoxu knew that if he told the truth, Su Zimo would definitely step in for him. At that time, the latter would definitely attract trouble. Although Su Zimo was an in-name disciple of the Sect master, he had just joined the academy and his cultivation realm was not high, could not defeat those people from the academy. Were people from the academy involved? When Su Zimo saw that Yang Ruoxu was unwilling to say more, he vaguely guessed something and asked again. Yang Ruoxu remained silent. Pausing for a moment, Yang Ruoxu suddenly changed the topic. Right, there's something else that's a little strange. At that time those people could have taken my life. However, they did not kill me and merely injured my essence spirit severely before leaving. Lu Ping turned his head slightly and analyzed. Senior brother Yang is an inner sect disciple of the academy after all. The people who attacked must have been wary and did not dare to go overboard. It's possible. Yang Ruoxu said in a low voice. However, I still feel that something is amiss, but I can't pinpoint the exact reason. Brother Su, it's best if you don't leave the academy for the time being and cultivate in seclusion for a period of time. Yang Ruoxu reminded again. Su Zimo did not comment and chatted with Yang Ruoxu for a while more. When he saw the latter's exhausted expression, he bid farewell together with Lu Ping and Princess Scarlet Rainbow. Chapter 23-22. 23-22 Something Strange. 23-22 Something Strange. After leaving Yang Ruoxu's cave abode, Su Zimo pondered for a moment and asked, did anything happen outside recently? The greatest thing should be that Emperor Bo soon escaped from Avicii and returned to the heavenly world, Princess Scarlet Rainbow said. Emperor Bo soon. Su Zimo was shocked. He knew about the Martial Dao Prime Body heading to Avicii to save Yen Beichen. However, after the Martial Dao Prime Body entered Avicii, he severed his connection with the Green Lotus True Body. Even after 1,000 years, there was no reaction. It was as though the Martial Dao Prime Body had vanished from the world. The Green Lotus True Body did not know what happened in Avicii either, let alone the fact that Emperor Bo soon escaped. That was the reason why the Green Lotus True Body was so surprised when he heard that Emperor Bo soon was still alive. Princess Scarlet Rainbow recounted the news about Avicii. I heard that recently, many cultivators of the heavenly world have headed to Avicii to check things out. Avicii. Su Zimo was in deep thought. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat and he said, the Soraka fruit. What? Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping were stunned. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, the Soraka fruit might be in Avicii and it can heal senior brother Yang's essence spirit injuries. The matter of the Soraka fruit was known to the Martial Dao Prime Body prior to entering Avicii. That was why the Green Lotus True Body knew about it as well. Zimo, are you going to head to Avicii? Princess Scarlet Rainbow asked. That's right. Su Zimo did not choose to hide the truth. Even without the incident with Yang Ruoxu, he had considered whether he should make a trip to Avicii. After all, that was where the Martial Dao Prime Body disappeared. Right now, it was even more imperative. Princess Scarlet Rainbow said, Avicii is incomparably dangerous. I'll go with you. I'll go too. Lu Ping said without hesitation as well. There's no need. Su Zimo shook his head. I do have a favor to ask of the two of you. Senior brother Su, please speak, Lu Ping said. Su Zimo said, Senior brother Yang is severely injured and it will be extremely difficult for him mentally and physically during this period of time. He doesn't have anyone protecting him. I'm worried that something might happen to him, so I hope that the two of you can visit him more during this period of time and help take care of him. Princess Scarlet Rainbow said, don't worry, we'll take good care of senior brother Yang. No matter what, wait for me to return. Su Zimo reminded again. All right. Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping nodded. Lu Ping continued, I'll go back and pack up now. I might as well move to senior brother Yang's place during this period of time and accompany him. I'll go too, Princess Scarlet Rainbow said. Guys, let's bid farewell here. Su Zimo cupped his fists and bowed towards Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping. He did not have anyone he could trust in Heaven and Earth Academy. Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping were the only ones he could entrust this task to. Princess Scarlet Rainbow said, Zimo, I hope that you can return safely with the Soraka fruit as well. The three of them flew through the air and left separately. Avicii was indeed an unpredictable and dangerous place for others. However, Su Zimo had the hell suppression tripod that was completely repaired with him. He believed that this treasure would definitely be of some use in Avicii. Soraka fruit. Suddenly, Su Zimo sneered. Yang Ruoxu was right. There was indeed something wrong with him being able to return alive. When Su Zimo heard the news of Avicii, he guessed that someone must be plotting in secret to attack him. The injury to Yang Ruoxu's essence spirit was bait. The other party predicted that he would leave Heaven and Earth Academy for Yang Ruoxu and head to Avicii. That was the reason why they set up such a trap. Let's see who are the ones who wants to lay their hands on me. Su Zimo's expression was as cold as ever. The fact that Yang Ruoxu was severely injured triggered his killing intent. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, a figure flashed before him and blocked his path. The person who arrived was the #1 fairy of the inner sect, Yan Bingying, who was on good terms with Feng Qingyun, Tang Pang and the others. Is there anything? Naturally, Su Zimo did not have a good attitude towards her either since he had a feud with Feng Qingyun and the others. Yan Bingying had a conflicted expression as she asked, Senior Brother Su, where are you going? What has it got to do with you? Su Zimo asked expressionlessly. Su Zimo did not waste time with her. He circled around Yan Bingying and sped in the direction of the Sect's teleportation formation. Senior Brother Su. Yan Bingying did not turn around, but a voice transmission from her spirit consciousness sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Don't ever go to Avicii. That's all I have to say. Su Zimo did not reply. In fact, he did not even pause and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Sigh. Yan Bingying looked at Su Zimo's back view and sighed deeply. She knew that this paragon who had condensed a 10th stone step on the Dao Heart Stairs was about to die prematurely. At the same time, in the depths of Heaven and Earth Academy, in an ancient cultivation palace, white smoke rose from the incense burner, shrouding the entire palace like a paradise. Through the smoke, an incomparably handsome middle-aged man could be vaguely seen. He wore a green scholarly robe and sat in a lotus position with his eyes closed. Restit was the sect master of the academy. Suddenly, the smoke surged and gathered towards the middle. Before long, a figure walked out slowly from the depths of the smoke. It was old Xian who was guarding the various secret pavilions and was also Elder 10 of the academy. What is it? The moment the sect master opened his eyes, a boundless starry sky flashed within. There was smoke for thousands of kilometers and a deep ocean surged. However, everything returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Those eyes became emotionless and clear. Have you heard the news of Avicii? Old Xian asked bluntly, what do you think? There's something strange about it. The sect master said indifferently, I knew a long time ago that Emperor Bo soon escaped from Avicii. Now that this news has spread through the heavenly world, someone must have done it on purpose. What do you mean? Old Xian frowned and asked, what's their motive for releasing this news intentionally? This might be a trap. The sect master said deeply, right now, various factions are restless and countless cultivators are rushing to Avicii to check things out. However, this piece of news might be mixed with fake information. For example, Avicii might not have any cracks. Pest. Old Xian's expression changed as he said sternly, if what you said is true, all the cultivators who enter Avicii this time round will probably be buried there and none of them will be able to come out. How many lives would be lost? Old Xian pondered for a moment before continuing, however, Emperor Bo soon did escape from there. This can't be faked. The reason why Emperor Bo soon was able to escape was because he was Emperor Bo soon. The sect master smiled gently and asked instead, however, how many Emperor Bo soons are there in this world? Which of the cultivators heading to Avicii this time round can compare to Emperor Bo soon? Chapter 2323. 2323 Door of Death. 2323 Door of Death. Of course, that's only my guess. It might not be accurate. The sect master of the academy smiled again and asked, "Why? You want to go to Avicii too?" Old Shen rolled his eyes. "I'm not thinking about that damn place at my age." Pausing for a moment, he continued, "However, I heard that Su Zimo is prepared to head to Avicii." "Oh," the sect master replied, seemingly unsurprised and uninterested. "According to what you said, Avicii is so dangerous. Aren't you worried about him at all? He's the in-name disciple you just accepted." Old Shen raised his brow slightly. "He might not encounter any danger in Avicii," the sect master said indifferently. Old Shen pouted. "You divined that? Your divination is able to work for a place like Avicii which can block the heavenly secrets?" The sect master did not explain. "It's also possible that he won't get the chance to enter Avicii." "Why?" Old Shen asked with a frown. The sect master said, "Do you know about the inner sect disciple, Yang Ruoxu, getting injured?" Old Shen pondered for a moment and narrowed his eyes slightly. "You mean to say that someone made use of the fact that Yang Ruoxu's essence spirit was injured to lure Su Zimo to Avicii on purpose and set up a trap in advance?" The sect master did not say anything as a silent acknowledgement. "In that case, it's not a coincidence that Yang Ruoxu was injured. In other words, disciples of the academy are involved in this matter." A cold glint flashed through Old Shen's eyes. Although he did not bother about sect matters usually, he was sharp and reacted extremely quickly. With a single sentence from the sect master, he had already deduced the gist of things. Old Shen glanced at the sect master and sneered. "By the looks of it, you must have known who was behind this long ago. Why didn't you interfere?" The sect master of the academy shook his head gently. Old Shen harumphed coldly. "After you took over the academy, you ignored the fights between the disciples of the academy and allowed them to do whatever they wanted. There are many factions in the academy and there are endless fights between them. What's in it for the academy?" The sect master sighed gently. "The benefit of that is that they can adapt to the cruel world outside and grow faster. If the academy is peaceful, how can they deal with those schemes and plots when they're traveling outside? That's the only way these disciples of the academy can survive and establish themselves in the upper world if the academy encounters a calamity." Old Shen remained silent. The sect master said, "Su Zimo has the teleportation Jade badge that I gave him. If he encounters any danger, he can crush the Jade badge and teleport back. There shouldn't be any danger." "That's true," Elder Shen said. "However, that's Avicii after all. Now that experts from all over the heavenly world have been alarmed, that lad's cultivation realm is still too low. It's not sufficient. Since you're still worried, I'll divine for him." The sect master smiled gently and waved his sleeves. The clouds before him surged and 8 ancient doors appeared. Every single door was etched with complicated and mysterious runes that shone faintly. The sect master changed hand seals repeatedly and his fingertip entered the 8 doors. The 8 doors spun rapidly in midair and a moment later, only one of them was left. It was still shimmering while the light of the other 7 dimmed. "The Door of Death." Old Shen focused his gaze and his expression changed as he hollered, "This trip is extremely dangerous." The sect master had a grim expression and frowned as well. "We can't let him leave the academy," Old Shen said in a deep voice. The sect master shook his head. "He values loyalty and is going to Avicii to look for the Soraka fruit in order to save Yang Ruoxu. If you stop him, it will definitely backfire." Old Shen pondered for a moment. "I'll follow and take a look. If anything happens, I'll be able to attack in time." "All right." The sect master nodded. "Be careful. If you encounter any danger, take him back right away. Don't fight." Old Shen had already turned to leave with his hands behind his back. Arriving at the sect's teleportation formation, Su Zimo matched the map and located the teleportation formation of Azura Monastery. With a flash of light, his figure vanished. Before long, when Su Zimo reappeared, he had already stepped foot onto the pure land of bliss and was surrounded by a destroyed ruin. Through some dilapidated walls, one could vaguely determine the origin and scale of the structures back then. This was Azura Monastery of Great Tai Wei Mountain. The moment Su Zimo arrived, he saw many cultivators in midair turning into streaks of light that sped in the direction of Tai Wei Mountain. During this period of time, countless cultivators entered Avicii one after another. Releasing his spirit consciousness, Su Zimo scanned his surroundings carefully and did not find signs of anything suspicious. He took a deep breath and headed in the direction of Tai Wei Mountain as well. Before long, his heart skipped a beat and he looked to his side. In the ruins over there was a tomb with a dilapidated straw hut beside it. The strange thing was that there was an old monk with long brows sitting on a tombstone. He raised his head slightly and looked in the direction of Tai Wei Mountain in deep thought. The martial Tao Prime Body had once mentioned to the Green Lotus True Body that there was a strange old monk with long brows guarding the tomb in the depths of Azura Monastery. The Green Lotus True Body sized up the long-browed old monk but could not make out anything. He seemed just like an old man on the brink of death. Right then, the tomb keeper seemed to have sensed something and glanced sideways at Su Zimo. Eh! Suddenly, the tomb keeper exclaimed softly and turned around slowly. He stared at Su Zimo's face for a long time before smiling. Interesting. What did the tomb keeper discover? Was it the Green Lotus True Body? Or was it some other secrets he held? Why would the tomb keeper say that he was interesting? Suddenly, a possibility crossed Su Zimo's mind. The tomb keeper had seen the two true bodies before. Could the tomb keeper have seen through the Mara mask and saw the face of the martial Tao True Body? Could he have said that it was interesting because he saw the Green Lotus True Body now? If the tomb keeper could see through the Mara mask, what was his cultivation and background? The more Su Zimo thought about it, the more shocked he became. Both times, this tomb keeper managed to give him a sense of trepidation. Su Zimo cupped his fists and circled around the tomb, continuing forward. It was only when he was far away from Azura Monastery that he turned back and heaved a sigh of relief when he realized that he could no longer see the tomb keeper. On the other side, Old Xian had also arrived at Azura Monastery. He stuffed his hands into his sleeves and followed Su Zimo from afar. Before long, he passed by a tomb and suddenly stopped in his tracks. On a tombstone not far away sat a long-browed old monk. He was hunched and looked withered. Chapter 23-24 23-24 Immortal Formation Trap 23-24 Immortal Formation Trap. The long-browed old monk only had the cultivation of a black immortal, and exuded a strong aura of twilight, as though he was half dead. Initially, Old Xian did not take the long-browed old monk seriously. However, his intuition told him that this old monk did not seem ordinary. When he recalled the divination divined by the sect master of the academy, Old Xian's heart skipped a beat as he thought to himself, was the door of death sign due to this person? Who are you? Old Xian narrowed his eyes and asked. A tomb keeper. The long-browed old monk was motionless and replied indifferently without even looking at Old Xian. Tomb keeper. Old Xian sneered and extended his left hand, holding an octagonal hexagram disc. Suddenly, he took out 3 circular metal plates filled with runes with his right hand and held them between his fingers, immersing his spirit consciousness into them. Splash! A moment later, Old Xian threw the 3 metal plates in his right hand into the divination disc. This divination technique was a secret skill of the academy known as the 6 trigram divination. Although this divination technique could not compare to the Qimeng techniques mastered by the sect master of the academy, it was still an extremely superior divination secret skill. Old Xian wanted to divine some information about the long-browed old monk to check out the situation. However, the 3 metal plates that were scattered on the divination disc displayed a chaotic divination that was disorderly, could not make heads or tails of it. Old Xian frowned slightly and put away the 3 metal plates. He restarted the divination and threw them into the divination disc once more. It was still in disarray and the divination was chaotic. Crack, crack, crack. Right then, the 3 metal plates on the divination disc cracked. Clear cracks appeared on the disc as well. Old Xian's expression changed and he looked up instinctively. On the tombstone, the tomb keeper turned around slowly with a dark gaze. He looked at Old Xian and asked slowly, "What are you doing?" Old Xian shuddered. When he was looked at by that pair of eyes, it was as though his mind was struck by lightning. A strange power descended that he could not defend against at all. Old Xian opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. This is bad. Old Xian channeled his essence spirit and released a grotto heaven, tearing through the void. He wanted to enter the spatial tunnel and return to the academy right away. However, his grotto heaven collapsed the moment it was released. The moment Old Xian entered the spatial tunnel, he was severely injured once more. His vision darkened and he fainted, floating in the spatial tunnel as the distance between him and Azura Monastery increased. On the other side, Su Zimo continued in the direction of Tai Wei Mountain after leaving Azura Monastery. Before long, a warning flashed in his mind and he stopped in his tracks. Activate! A voice sounded from the side. Immediately after, a series of formation patterns appeared beneath his feet. An immortal formation was activated and Su Zimo had already entered it. Su Zimo had a calm expression as he sensed carefully. This immortal formation did not restrict his combat strength at all. However, the immortal formation blocked the surroundings and formed a sealed space that was isolated from the outside world. He was gradually surrounded by figures. Ha 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 ha! A smug and familiar laughter sounded. Without turning back, Su Zimo could guess that the person behind him was Prince Yuan Zhua. Su Zimo, you didn't expect this, right? We meet again. Prince Yuan's was said with a smug smile. He had waited for this moment for too long. Su Zimo turned back. Prince Yuan Zhua was not alone. He had hundreds of followers. More than 10 of them were execution guards while the rest were high-level heaven immortals whose cultivation realms far surpassed his. You're Su Zimo? Who are you? Su Zimo raised his brow and asked. My Dao title is Gue Yuan and I'm here to kill you on the orders of Senior Sister Meng Yao. Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan was alone without any other disciples of Flying Immortal Sect. He did not need backup either. In the inner sect of Flying Immortal Sect, his combat strength was enough to be ranked in the top 5. The Zither Immortal? Su Zimo sneered. I'm truly living rent-free in Fairy Meng Yao's mind. If we meet again, I'll have to thank her properly. Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan could tell that Su Zimo was mocking her. A cold glint flashed through his eyes as he said indifferently, You won't get that chance. Su Zimo, I'll make you pay with blood for my brother's life today. A man with a dark expression walked over murderously from not far away. He was alone as well. The person's face was 70% similar to the dead Pang Yu. With a single thought, Su Zimo guessed the background of this person. Someone from the Pang clan? Su Zimo asked. You're smart. Pang Yi said slowly, I'm Pang Yi, Pang Yu's brother. Oh. Su Zimo replied and nodded. That's perfect. I'll send you on your way today. You two can accompany one another in hell. Ha 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 ha. Pang Yi was so angry that he laughed instead. Good good good. Su Zimo, you're still so brazen even at the brink of death. Let's see who dies first today. Su Zimo, do you remember me? A voice sounded. From another direction, a nobleman strode over with hundreds of high-level heaven immortals behind him. Xie Tianhong of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom. Of course I remember. Su Zimo grinned. I even said that I'll give you a huge gift the next time we meet. That's right. I'm truly looking forward to it. Xie Tianhong smiled as well. However, I wonder if you'll like this huge gift today. It's good that all of you are gathered. That saves me the trouble of having to look for you one by one. Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo declared, Who else is there? Stand out and let me take a look. Junior brother Su, how have you been? Another voice sounded and Tang Peng walked out from the depths of the immortal formation, appearing slowly with a sneer on his face. Su Zimo was not surprised to see Tang Peng. Are you alone? Su Zimo asked again. Tang Peng shrugged his shoulders gently. Of course I alone am enough. What a pity. Su Zimo shook his head. Prince Yuan Zhua and the others exchanged glances and felt that something was amiss. Su Zimo's reaction was completely different from what they had imagined. He did not panic, fear, beg for mercy or even escape. He was way too calm. Just as Prince Yuan Zhua was about to get worried, he recalled that he had a backup plan that could make up for things if anything went wrong. Today, Su Zimo was dead for sure. Why did you guys mobilize so many high-level heaven immortals to set up this immortal formation? Su Zimo asked unhurriedly. Prince Yuanzhua said, this immortal formation can block spirit consciousness detection. Even if someone passes by here, they won't be able to sense anything. Su Zimo, don't expect anyone to save you. Prince Yuanzhua and the others had planned for this moment for a long time and naturally would not make any mistakes. They wanted to eliminate all possible changes in advance. Chapter 23-25. 23-25 All of you have to die. 23-25 All of you have to die. Pang Yi said coldly, Su Zimo, you don't have to harbor any fantasies. Even your senior brother who was a grade 9 heaven immortal was crippled by us. At the mention of Yang Ruoxu, Su Zimo's gaze turned even colder. He glared at Tang Peng and said slowly, you deserve to die for joining forces with outsiders to attack cultivators of the same sect. Tang Peng felt chills run down his spine from Su Zimo's gaze. Others might not know Su Zimo's identity, but Tang Peng knew that Su Zimo had already been accepted as an in-name disciple by the sect master of the academy and had a noble status. If Su Zimo were to return to the academy alive, he would definitely not be able to escape the punishment of the academy's sect rules and would definitely die. Furthermore, he had personally witnessed the scene of Su Zimo condensing the 10th stone step of the Dao Heart Stairsit was way too shocking. Although Su Zimo was only a grade 2 heaven immortal, he was not confident and was worried that something might happen. Tang Peng gulped and grit his teeth. Everyone, don't waste your breath on him. Let's cripple his cultivation first before torturing him slowly. Attack! Xie Tianhong said in a deep voice. The moment he said that, Prince Yuanzhua, Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan, Pang Yi and Xie Tianhong attacked at the same time. The hundreds of Heaven Immortal experts behind Prince Yuanzhua and Xie Tianhong did not move. The four of them had long agreed that there was no need for so many people to attack Su Zimo together. With so many Heaven Immortal experts attacking at the same time, if all of them released a dermic art, divine power or dermic treasure, Su Zimo might be killed by accident. The four of them wanted to capture Su Zimo alive and cripple his cultivation so that they could torture him properly. For Xie Tianhong, if he could bring Su Zimo who was alive to zither immortal Meng Yao, the latter would definitely be even happier. The hundreds of Heaven Immortal experts behind the two of them were just in case. After all, both of them were princes of immortal kingdoms. It was not difficult for them to mobilize hundreds of Heaven Immortal experts. All of you have to die. Su Zimo's expression was cold and his gaze was like lightning. His glabella shone and an ancient bronze square tripod flew out slowly. There were lifelike patterns of living beings etched on the four walls of the tripod. This tripod again. Prince Yuanzhua focused his gaze. Back then when Feng Cantian escaped from Absolute Thunder City, he relied on this bronze square tripod to kill in all directions and retrieve his destiny spirit treasure. Back then, this bronze square tripod was a little dilapidated and its walls were filled with cracks. Right now, the bronze square tripod looked intact. The hell suppression tripod had descended. Prince Yuanzhua, Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan, Pang Yi and Xie Tianhong paused for a moment at the same time and glared at the living being patterns on the hell suppression tripod's walls with a sense of trepidation. The four tripod walls corresponded to four people. Everyone saw the pattern of a different living being. However, the living beings on each tripod wall exuded an aura that came from the wild universe. They were ancient and mysterious, possessing endless might. This is... Xie Tianhong glared at the spirit turtle-like living being on the tripod wall not far away. The living being carried a turtle shell on its back and stood on the sea on all fours. However, it had two heads that resembled a turtle and a snake coiling around one another. Pest! Xie Tianhong suddenly gasped. The sacred spirit of the black tortoise. A thought flashed through his mind. He did not know what the black tortoise pattern on the wall of the tripod meant. However, weapons and dermic treasures that were related to the black tortoise definitely possessed unimaginable terrifying might. Retreat! Xie Tianhong was extremely cautious and made a prompt decision. He was the first to retreat among the four of them. On the other side, Prince Yuanzhua had witnessed the terror of the hell suppression tripod and was wary to begin with. Now that he was staring at the divine dragon on the tripod wall, He felt his heart skip a beat and slowed down instinctively. As for Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan and Pang Yi, they had never fought Su Zimo before and did not know him at all, let alone know what the bronze square tripod was. Both of them noticed Xie Tianhong retreating and Prince Yuan's was slowing down. However, they could not react in time. Right then, the 4 sacred spirits on the walls of the Hell Suppression Tripod suddenly opened their eyes and released divine lights. The Hell Suppression Tripod had devoured a few treasures in succession in the 9 heavens and its body had long recovered. Now that the power of the 4 sacred souls was replenished, they were all awakened. Roar! Roar! Ow! The 4 sacred souls burrowed out of the Hell Suppression Tripod and let out a series of roars that were either high-pitched, violent, sharp or heavy. Each of the 4 sacred souls could match a top-grade 9 Heaven Immortal if they descended individually. Back on the Dragon Abyss Star, a vermilion bird sacred soul killed a top Heaven Immortal, Mei Ji. Now that the Hell Suppression Tripod was completely repaired, the power of the 4 sacred souls was even stronger than before. The vermilion bird's sacred soul flew out of the Hell Suppression Tripod. It was scarlet all over and flapped its wings. Scarlet flames flowed on its body and dripped continuously like lava. Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan was facing the tripod wall of the vermilion bird's sacred soul and was caught off guard by this change. The eyes of the vermilion bird's sacred soul contained a supreme might as he looked at Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan as though he was looking at an ant. The moment he was distracted, the vermilion bird's sacred soul had already surged towards him. The scorching heat wave almost burned through Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan's body. His body burned with flames from the inside out. Ah! With his life on the line, Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan shrieked tragically and channeled his essence spirit wildly, releasing a supreme divine power, wanting to protect himself and escape from this place. However, the moment his supreme divine power was formed, it was burned cleanly by the flames of the vermilion bird's sacred soul. That was the vermilion bird's sacred fire and was even stronger than the southern Mingli fire. The vermilion bird's sacred soul swept past Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan and barely even had to attack. There was only a ball of ashes left where Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan was, scattering with the wind. Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan was burned to ashes. Pang Yi's situation was not much better than Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan. He was not prepared either when he saw a tiger covered in white fur charge out from the tripod wall opposite him. It was surrounded by a malevolent aura and was filled with blood chi that was almost corporeal. The white tiger sacred soul was positioned on the west side and specialized in killing. Every single hair on the white tiger sacred soul that fell off possessed supreme killing power that could split galaxies and annihilate all living beings. Pang Yi felt his limbs go cold from the stare of the white tiger sacred soul and his body stiffened, as though he had lost the ability to escape. He was so scared that his face turned pale as he crushed a jade pendant on his waist hurriedly. Right then, the white tiger sacred soul lunged forward. Shing! An ear-piercing sound rang. Pang Yi's pupils constricted as the protective barrier around him was torn apart by the white tiger sacred soul. The white tiger sacred soul thrust in and slapped down with its claws that shone with cold lights. Pang Yi's body was torn apart by the gigantic tiger claws and his essence spirit was destroyed, dying on the spot. Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan and Pang Yi were unlucky. Among the 4 sacred souls, the vermilion bird sacred soul and white tiger sacred soul were the most ferocious. Furthermore, they were caught off guard. None of them expected Su Zimo to be able to use methods that could threaten them. In the blink of an eye, they died on the spot. Chapter 23-26 23-26 Massacre 2326 Massacre. On the other side, the black tortoise sacred soul charged out of the Hell Suppression Tripod and a tsunami seemed to have formed beneath it. Although it looked clumsy and massive, it traveled on the ocean at an astonishing speed and charged towards Xie Tianhong aggressively. Xie Tianhong was the first to realize that something was amiss and retreat. Therefore, his reaction time was longer than the other 3. The moment the black tortoise sacred soul charged out, he had already condensed a supreme divine power to attack it. Boom! The supreme divine power struck the black tortoise sacred soul. However, the black tortoise sacred soul was indifferent. Beams of light shone from its turtle shell, neutralizing the power of the supreme divine power. Xie Tianhong made use of the momentum to retreat as well. The hundreds of heaven immortal experts behind him swarmed forward and released many supreme divine powers, divine weapons and dermic treasures, smashing towards the Black Tortoise Sacred Soul. The killing attacks of the Black Tortoise Sacred Soul were not considered strong. However, its defense was supreme among the 4 sacred souls. The Black Tortoise Sacred Soul roared into the skies and a torrential wave surged behind it. The ravines on the turtle shell shone brightly. Many divine powers and dermic treasures passed through the massive waves and their strength was reduced significantly. When they eventually smashed onto the Black Tortoise Sacred Soul shell, the damage to it was minimized. Prince Yuanzhua was not as decisive as Xie Tianhong to retreat right away. However, he still slowed down and was on guard. Therefore, the moment the Azure Dragon's Sacred Soul opened its eyes in the tripod wall opposite him, he realized that something was amiss. As he retreated, he condensed a divine power and secret skill and attacked forward. Bang! 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 The Azure Dragon charged out at an extremely fast speed and pushed forward, shattering the few divine powers and secret skills of Prince Yuanzhua. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before him. It was way too domineering. Prince Yuanzhua had long summoned a gigantic shield in front of him. Boom! There was a loud bang. The Azure Dragon's Sacred Soul collided heavily against the shield and exploded. A tremendous power passed through the shield and sent Prince Yuanzhua flying. Prince Yuanzhua spat out a mouthful of blood with a dispirited expression. Although he was injured, his outcome was much better than Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan and Pang Yi. At the very least, he managed to survive. Such an injury was nothing for a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. With that slight delay, the hundreds of Heaven Immortal experts behind Prince Yuanzhua charged forward at the same time and attacked. Roar! The Azure Dragon's Sacred Soul reared its head and howled with rage in its eyes. It was as though it was enraged that it could not kill Prince Yuanzhua instantly. It spiraled upwards and rose. Its massive and slender dragon body was filled with dense and tough green scales. Its dragon claws were sharp and shone with a cold glint. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the clouds. The divine powers and dermic treasures of hundreds of Heaven Immortal experts came to nothing. Suddenly, an incomparably thick dragon tail swung out from the clouds. Carrying the might of thunder that could sweep through an army, it created a violent gust of wind and descended instantly. Poof, poof, poof. More than 200 Heaven Immortal experts of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom could not dodge in time and were swept over by the Azure Dragon's tail, exploding into blood mists. Their essence spirits were destroyed on the spot by a single swipe of the dragon's tail. 2 Heaven Execution Guards wore heavy armor, but none of them could defend against the power of the Azure Dragon's tail. Their armor shattered and the shards entered their bodies, killing them on the spot. The dragon tail swept through the void and a blood-red region appeared. There was no one alive. Prince Yuanzhua, Xie Tianhong, Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan and Pang Yi joined forces. But now, they were shattered by the 4 sacred souls. The 4 sacred souls killed in all directions. Su Zimo knew that he might be ambushed, but he still dared to come alone. It was because he was backed by the 4 sacred souls in the Hell Suppression Tripod. Unless a perfected immortal appeared, the 4 sacred souls could kill everyone in this immortal formation. Under Su Zimo's will, the White Tiger Sacred Soul that killed Pang Yi targeted Tang Peng, who was not far away. Tang Peng was scared out of his wits by the scene before him. They were in high spirits earlier on. In the blink of an eye, corpses were strewn everywhere and blood flowed like rivers. Even Heaven Immortal Gue Yuan and Pang Yi died on the spot. Suddenly, Tang Peng felt a chill run down his spine. This is bad. I've been targeted. Tang Peng was alarmed. He was a disciple of the academy after all and reacted extremely quickly. Channeling his blood chi, his figure flashed and he transformed into a streak of light, leaving the spot instantly. Tang Peng had once obtained a great opportunity and swapped blood through marrow cleansing with a trace of the rock bloodline in his body. In the inner sect of the academy, Tang Peng was known as the #1 in movement techniques. Right after he left the spot, a gigantic tiger claw descended from the skies. If he was any slower, he would have been torn into pieces by the tiger claw. Roar! After missing his attack, the white tiger glared at Tang Peng and roared before giving chase once more. Tang Peng's heart skipped a beat. He had witnessed the scene of Pang Yi's death and did not dare to fight the white tiger head-on as he turned to flee. However, he was restricted by the Immortal formation and did not have the chance to leave. He could only sprint wildly on the battlefield without daring to relax. Tang Peng, you can't escape. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded faintly and entered his ears. Screech! Immediately after, the cry of a phoenix sounded. Up ahead, a scarlet sea of flames surged and blocked Tang Peng's path. In the sea of flames, the vermilion bird's sacred soul appeared and flapped its scarlet wings. It glared at Tang Peng without any emotions in its eyes. Roar! Behind Tang Peng, the white tiger growled. The vermilion bird blocked his path at the front while the white tiger hunted him from the back. In order to kill Tang Peng, Su Zimo made the two sacred souls join force. It was clear how determined he was. Junior brother Su and no, I mean senior brother Su. Tang Peng tried his best to squeeze out a smile and begged for mercy. I was bewitched and committed such a huge mistake. Please spare my life on account of our relationship as fellow sect mates. His voice was quivering. No matter how fast he was, his speed was far inferior to the true rock race. Notwithstanding two sacred souls, even the vermilion bird's sacred soul alone could hunt him down to his death, could not escape. What relationship do we have? Su Zimo sneered with a mocking expression. Senior brother Su, I can swear that. Just as Tang Peng was about to say something, his figure vanished from the spot before he could finish. Supreme divine power, teleportation. When he reappeared, Tang Peng was already behind Su Zimo. Don't move. The moment he said that, he realized that something was amiss. Although the person he grabbed had his back facing him, it was not Su Zimo. Instead, it was a lifeless corpse. Nether swap. The moment he released teleportation, Su Zimo released Nether swap and swapped positions with a corpse not far away. By the time Tang Peng realized this, it was already too late. Not far away, he saw the mockery on Su Zimo's face, the flames of the vermilion bird's sacred soul and the sharp claws of the white tiger sacred soul. Chapter 23-27 23-27 Arrival of Perfected Immortals 23-27 Arrival of Perfected Immortals. Two people stood side by side on Tai Wei Mountain and looked at the entrance of Avicii from afar without advancing rashly. One of them was Perfected Immortal Jing Yu of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, the former Green Cloud County Governor. He accompanied Prince Yuan Zhua to the Pure Land of Bliss. The other person was the old man who was driving the carriage for Xie Tianhong. Although he looked ordinary and was short, he was also at the cultivation of a perfected immortal. The reason why the two of them followed him was to ensure that nothing went wrong. Of course, in their opinion, nothing could happen if the four factions joined forces to deal with Su Zimo. Therefore, the two of them did not follow Prince Yuan Zhua and Xie Tianhong. Instead, they came to Tai Wei Mountain to check out the legendary Avicii. Fellow Daoist, after this matter is over, do you have any plans to head down and check things out? Perfected Immortal Jing Yu asked. This is the most notorious forbidden ground in history. My old life won't be able to withstand such torture. Although the old man said that, a glint flashed through the depths of his eyes and he was eager to give it a shot. He did not have much lifespan left. However, there were countless treasures and inheritances in Avicii. He might be able to obtain some opportunities and encounters within that could extend his lifespan. Or it could help him in breaking through his cultivation realm. Avicii could be said to be the best preserved ruin in history, and there were countless treasures inside. It would be a lie to say that he was not tempted. In part, the old man followed Xie Tianhong here this time round for his own reasons too. He did not have much lifespan left and might as well give it a shot and try his luck in Avicii. As though he could tell that the old man did not mean what he said, Perfected Immortal Jing Yu smiled. Fellow Daoist Imperial Dragon, you must be joking. Back then, when you relied on a single Imperial Dragon Immortal Whip to dominate the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, I was only a junior. The old man who was driving Xie Tianhong's carriage was also a top-tier expert among perfected immortals when he was at his peak. However, now that he was in his twilight years, his combat strength was much weaker. Suddenly, Perfected Immortal Jing Yu's expression changed as he swept his palm across his storage bag and withdrew a shattered soul badge. These soul badges were condensed for the hundreds of heaven immortal experts around Prince Yuan's Hua. The shattering of the soul badges meant that these people had already died. At the same time, Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon frowned and took out a pile of shattered soul badges from his storage bag. Something has happened. The hearts of the two Perfected Immortals skipped a beat. Without hesitation, they turned around and sped towards Great Tai Wei Mountain. This battle was concealed by an immortal formation set up by 4 factions. No matter how much of a commotion broke out inside, no one outside could sense it. Before long, the two Perfected Immortals arrived before the immortal formation. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands and broke through a crack in the immortal formation. He barged in with Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon, and his expression changed when he saw the sight before him. It was way too tragic. The combined forces of the 4 factions were crushed by the 4 gigantic living beings that danced and roared in midair, and corpses were strewn everywhere. More than half of the hundreds of heaven immortal experts that Prince Yuan's Hua and Xie Tianhong each brought were dead. Although the remaining heaven immortal experts were trying their best to resist together, it was clear that they could not hold on any longer and could collapse at any moment. The only thing that made the two Perfected Immortals feel slightly relieved was that Prince Yuan's Hua and Xie Tianhong survived. Although Prince Yuan's Hua looked injured, he was fine. However, his face was pale and he had a frightened expression, as though he was shocked. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu and Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon entered the immortal formation and did not attack right away because the two of them were stunned by the 4 sacred souls in midair as well. Although the 4 sacred souls did not have flesh and physique and could only be considered as essence spirit souls, the aura they exuded was no different from true sacred beasts. The 4 sacred beasts. Pest. Impossible. The two Perfected Immortals shuddered. If the 4 sacred beasts were here, they would have to escape as well. Even if they had the ability to kill the 4 sacred beasts, they did not dare to. Something's not right. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon reacted quickly and said sternly, "These are not the true 4 sacred beasts. They don't have blood chi or bodies and are merely in the form of souls." Perfected Immortal Jing Yu quickly discovered that although the might of the 4 sacred souls was terrifying, the power released was not enough to threaten them. Swoosh! Suddenly, Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon summoned a long whip and whipped the white tiger who was in a massacre not far away. Initially, the whip was limp and weak. However, when true essence surged in, it turned incomparably tough instantly and pierced the white tiger's sacred soul like a spear. Roar! The white tiger's sacred soul was severely injured as it howled. Although the 4 sacred souls swept through the heaven immortals in this battle, it took a huge toll on their strength. After receiving such a serious injury, the glow on the white tiger's sacred soul dimmed rapidly and it turned into a streak of light. It entered the hell suppression tripod in Su Zimo's consciousness and fell asleep. On the other side, Perfected Immortal Jing Yu attacked at the same time and summoned an ancient bronze mirror. He channeled his Tao fruit and true essence condensed. Swoosh! The vermilion bird's sacred soul could not defend against it either and its glow dimmed. No matter how strong the 4 sacred souls were, they had not broken through to the Perfected One realm. The 4 sacred souls could not defend against the power of a Perfected Immortal at all. Jing Yu, hurry and kill Su Zimo. Prince Yuan's Hua was invigorated when he saw Perfected Immortal Jing Yu and Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon arrive in time. He shouted hurriedly and hid in the crowd, pointing at Su Zimo who was not far away. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu's gaze shifted and locked onto Su Zimo. "Young man, I have to admit that I was wrong back then." Perfected Immortal Jing Yu had not expected that this cultivator of the lower worlds he had unintentionally brought out from an essence spirit mine would turn the great Gene Immortal Kingdom upside down. This lad had also made quite a name for himself in the divine firmament immortal domain. "Back then, I was the one who noticed you and brought you away from the dark essence spirit mine." Perfected Immortal Jing Yu said slowly, "Your death in my hands today can be considered as a cycle of karma." The moment he said that, the ancient bronze mirror in midair changed directions and aimed at Su Zimo below, shining down. Even the vermilion bird's sacred soul could not defend against the power of the ancient bronze mirror, let alone Su Zimo who was only a grade 2 heaven immortal. However, Su Zimo's reaction was extremely fast. When he saw perfected Immortal Jing Yu and perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon arrive, he realized that it would be difficult for him to kill the remaining people with just the 4 sacred souls. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he had a plan. Just as perfected Immortal Jing Yu attacked, he channeled his spirit consciousness and the Black Tortoise Sacred Soul stepped onto the sea and shielded him. Beams of resplendent light burst forth from the gigantic turtle shell and fought against the ancient bronze mirror in midair. On the other side, perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon waved his whip and coiled it towards the Azure Dragon's sacred soul. The Imperial Dragon Immortal Whip was made from the tendons of a divine dragon. That was the reason for its name. However, the divine dragon before him was no ordinary divine dragon, it was one of the 4 sacred souls, the Azure Dragon. No matter how strong the Imperial Dragon Immortal Whip was, it could not trap the Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon's sacred soul roared into the skies and broke free from the restraints of the Imperial Dragon Immortal Whip instantly. Instead of attacking the 2 perfected immortals, it charged towards a formation eye of the Immortal Formation. Chapter 23-28 23-28 Hells 2328 Hell. He wants to dispel the formation and escape. When Xie Tianhong noticed the actions of the Azure Dragon's sacred soul, he reacted right away and shouted. The moment he said that, the Azure Dragon's sacred soul struck the formation eye and let out a deafening bang. The Immortal Formation shook as though the world was collapsing. That was where perfected Immortal Jing Yu and perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon entered earlier on. The Immortal Formation had just closed and was at its weakest when it was struck by the Azure Dragon's sacred soul. The Azure Dragon's sacred soul dissipated and turned into a streak of light, entering Su Zimo's consciousness. At the same time, the formation eye was destroyed instantly. The opportunity was fleeting and the 2 perfected immortals were watching covetously. Once Su Zimo was locked on, it would be difficult for him to escape given his cultivation. Therefore, the moment he dispelled the formation, Su Zimo released his teleportation technique without holding back and escaped from the range of the Immortal Formation. Thereafter, he released the true Dragon 9 flashes. At level 2 Heaven Essence Realm, Su Zimo could already flash 7 times in succession and cross more than 1,000 feet to arrive above the strait. Boom, boom, boom. The attacks of the 2 perfected immortals arrived, but all of them came to nothing. Su Zimo released his innate divine power that transformed into a pair of rock wings behind him. Turning into a golden streak of light, he sped towards Tai Wei Mountain. Ha 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 ha. Su Zimo's laughter sounded. You think you can kill me with your puny methods? Chase. Xie Tianhong's expression was dark. When he heard Su Zimo's laughter, he felt that it was extremely ear-piercing and hollered. Without waiting for him to speak, the 2 perfected immortals chased after Su Zimo right away. Prince Yuan Zhua and Xie Tianhong brought the remaining Heaven Immortal experts and followed. With the help of the rock wings, Su Zimo's movement technique was extremely fast. Given the fact that he was a step ahead, even the 2 perfected immortals could not catch up to him in time. Before long, Su Zimo arrived at the peak of Tai Wei Mountain. He strode towards the entrance of Avicii in huge strides and stood at the edge of the dark abyss. He turned to look at everyone who was chasing him and sneered. If you want to kill me, come to Avicii. With that said, Su Zimo leaped into the abyss of the Hell's Gate. By the time the 2 perfected immortals arrived, it was already too late and they could only see Su Zimo's back view as he fell. The 2 perfected immortals exchanged glances and could see the fear in each other's eyes. Even with their cultivation realms, they did not dare to be so decisive in the face of a dangerous place like Avicii. To think that this low-level Heaven Immortal would jump down directly. Chase after him. When Xie Tianhong arrived, he strode towards the Hell's Gate with a resolute expression. Your Highness, be careful. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon frowned slightly and said in a deep voice. How about this? I'll head down to explore Avicii in place of you, Your Highness. It's not appropriate for you to take the risk with your precious body. It's fine. Xie Tianhong waved it off. This lad has provoked me time and again. I'll definitely suppress him personally. Furthermore, since I'm here, this might be my opportunity. Almost everyone in this world would subconsciously think that they were the favored children of the heavens and would be accompanied by countless opportunities and encounters. Given Xie Tianhong's background, that was the feeling he had. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon wanted to persuade him further, but Xie Tianhong said, "You don't have to worry. I have the teleportation Jade badge given to me by Father. If I encounter any danger I can't deal with, I'll crush this Jade badge and leave directly." On second thought, Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon truly did not have to worry about anything since Xie Tianhong had such a teleportation Jade badge. He no longer stopped Xie Tianhong and leaped down first. Xie Tianhong and the Heaven Immortal experts behind him jumped down as well. "Jingyu, take my men down and join forces with Xie Tianhong and the others. Don't let Su Zimo escape this time round." Prince Yuan's was said in a deep voice. "All right." Perfected Immortal Jingyu agreed without hesitation. The reason why he came this time round was because he wanted to take a look at Avicii as well. It was exactly his intention to head down now. "What about you, Your Highness?" Perfected Immortal Jingyu asked. Prince Yuan's hesitated for a moment. "I'm not going down. I'll wait for your victorious return on Great Tai Wei Mountain." This change had truly scared him. Previously, he hunted down Su Zimo repeatedly and plotted against the latter. Although he failed time and again, he did not feel threatened. "All right." Perfected Immortal Jingyu said. "Your Highness, take care. Everyone, follow me." With that said, Perfected Immortal Jingyu leaped into Avicii as well. Apart from them, many cultivators arrived here during this period of time and charged into Avicii. The Hell's Gate was like the mouth of a primordial beast, waiting for countless prey to send themselves to it. Prince Yuan's glanced at the abyss below and could not help but shudder. With a wary expression, he turned and walked towards Great Tai Wei Mountain. After Su Zimo fell into Avicii, he realized that this was a world of its own with different laws. His spirit consciousness could not be activated. In other words, he could not use any divine powers or secret skills in Avicii. After the martial Tao prime body entered Avicii, the connection with the Green Lotus true body was severed. Therefore, the Green Lotus true body knew nothing about the situation in Avicii. Thankfully, he had the Hell Suppression tripod in his consciousness. Furthermore, he cultivated the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, and could be considered as the successor of the Infinite Great Emperor. Even if there was any danger in Avicii, it should not pose much of a threat to him. Figures leaped down from above. Su Zimo scoffed coldly. The reason why he slowed down intentionally was to lure Prince Yuan's, Xie Tianhong and the others down. He could not kill them all with the 4 sacred souls. However, Avicii might become their tomb. After a long time, Su Zimo finally descended. He landed on his feet and surveyed his surroundings. The place he was in was like a sinister and terrifying karst cave. There were many strange black stones that were steep and sharp. The terrain here was complicated and long corridors and filthy black rivers could be seen. There were layers of terraced fields and grasslands. There were also some coral formed from black rocks, stone pagodas and stone waterfalls. With no signs of carving, it was as though they were crafted by the gods. Here, Su Zimo did not sense any signs of life. He did not dare to be careless and surveyed his surroundings before heading in a direction. After taking a few steps, he saw a figure lying on the ground not far away. Su Zimo walked closer to take a look. This person wore a monk robe and his flesh was intact. Clearly, he had just died not long ago and was a monk who entered Avicii this time round. Although the monk did not have any injuries on his body, his face was purple and he had a horrified expression. Before his death, he seemed to have suffered immense pain and fear. Su Zimo did not dare to touch the person's corpse. He circled around the person and continued forward. Before long, he caught sight of another cultivator. The cultivator died in the same manner as the previous monk. However, this person wielded a dermic treasure that had 6 burn marks on it, as though it had been struck by lightning. A sentient dermic treasure. This person might be a perfected immortal. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Those burn marks were left behind when cultivators entered the perfected one realm and welcomed the heavenly tribulation to refine their dermic treasures. If there were 9 burn marks, it could be called a pure young spirit treasure. But now, not only was the perfected immortal dead, the spirit treasure's glow was dim and it was crippled as well. Chapter 2329. 2329 Familiar Voice. 2329 Familiar Voice. If even a perfected immortal died here, it was clear that there was indeed an unknown terrifying power in Avicii. Avicii crossed the eras and countless years had passed. Yet, the laws of this space were still intact. It was clear how terrifying this place was. It was no wonder why the Martial Tao Prime Body severed his connection with the Green Lotus True Body after entering Avicii. After Su Zimo entered Avicii, he tried to communicate with the Martial Tao Prime Body. However, he still could not sense anything, as though the latter had vanished from the world. The only thing he was certain of was that the Martial Tao Prime Body was not dead yet. The two true bodies were telepathic. If the Martial Tao Prime Body died, the Green Lotus True Body would definitely sense it. Right then, figures descended from the skies one after another. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon, Xie Tianhong and the others had arrived and landed here. Over there. After Xie Tianhong entered Avicii, the first thing he saw was Su Zimo. Pointing at him from afar, he hollered, "Chase after him. Be careful, Your Highness." Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon had a grim expression and said in a deep voice, "The power of the Essence Spirit can't be used in Avicii." Upon realizing that, Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon was secretly alarmed. The fact that he was unable to activate his Essence Spirit meant that he could not release divine powers, secret skills or his spirit consciousness. His perception of the surrounding danger would also be minimized. "It's fine." Because he had the teleportation Jade badge, Xie Tianhong was confident and analyzed calmly. "None of us can use our essence spirits, it doesn't make a difference. We can only rely on our blood chi and physiques. You're a perfected immortal and have true essence to temper your flesh and blood. This lad is not your match." Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon was silent. In Avicii, anything could be much more dangerous than Su Zimo. That was because he had already seen a perfected immortal monk who died not far away. At the same time, perfected immortal Jingyu descended with a group of heaven immortal experts from the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. "Let's chase after him first." Perfected immortal Jingyu's eyes flashed and his lips curled. "With that lad leading the way, he'll be the first to encounter any danger. This is a rare opportunity." Xie Tianhong's eyes lit up. "That's right." Thereafter, the two perfected immortals and Xie Tianhong chased after Su Zimo with more than 400 heaven immortal experts. Su Zimo knew nothing about the terrain of Avicii. He could only continue forward, crossing mountains and rivers. After running for about an hour, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, he stopped and stared at the ground on both sides. Faint purple lights shone from the gaps between the rocks on both sides and twisted slightly. They were extremely fast and meandered towards him. The purple lights were as thin as a cow's hair and resembled a snake-type living being. If one was not careful, it would be difficult to detect them in this dark environment. Along the way, Su Zimo saw many cultivators who had died recently. All of them died in strange and menacing ways with purple faces and no other wounds on their bodies. Now that he thought about it, there was a high chance that those cultivators died in the hands of these purple snakes. Su Zimo did not dare to be careless and was about to attack. As though they sensed immense fear, the purple snakes retreated in all directions before they even arrived before Su Zimo and fled wildly. Although he was slightly stunned, Su Zimo understood instantly. It was most likely because of the Hell Suppression Tripod. Although the Hell Suppression Tripod was in his consciousness, the purple snakes could still sense its aura when they were close. This bronze square tripod was created by the Infinite Great Emperor to suppress Avicii in the past. No matter how strong the living beings in Hell were, they could not defend against the might of the Hell Suppression Tripod. Su Zimo paused for a moment and continued forward. Because they could not use divine powers or secret skills, some heaven immortal cultivators with weak physiques and blood chi were gradually left behind by Su Zimo along the way. Only the two perfected immortals, Xie Tianhong and more than 10 other cultivators could catch up to Su Zimo. The purple snakes did not dare to touch Su Zimo. As for the two perfected immortals, Xie Tianhong and the others, they were not too far away from Su Zimo and the purple snakes did not dare to attack rashly either. However, the heaven immortal experts at the back were ambushed. The attacks of the purple snakes were extremely strange. After climbing onto a cultivator's body, they would not bite any wounds on the cultivator. Instead, They would burrow into the cultivator's body through his pores and wreak havoc within, destroying all life. The purple snakes could riddle his organs with holes and enter his bloodstream, heart and consciousness, destroying his essence spirit directly. Every cultivator would endure immense pain and torture before they died. As long as a purple snake burrowed into a cultivator, they would not be able to escape death. Furthermore, they were surrounded by so many purple snakes. Oh. A series of tragic cries sounded from the back. The two perfected immortals, Xie Tianhong and the others, turned back and could not help but feel fear when they saw a group of cultivators being attacked by the purple snakes and dying. Hurry, don't fall behind. Perfected Immortal Jing, you realized that the cultivators who were attacked by the purple snakes were the ones at the back. For example, they were at the front and did not encounter the encirclement of the purple snakes. Everyone had ugly expressions as they released their blood qi and released all their strength to chase after Su Zimo. As time passed by, the number of cultivators that were left behind increased. Su Zimo was the green lotus true body and had a strong physique. Even after a long journey, his breathing was steady and he had a calm expression. However, although the Heaven Immortal experts chasing after him had high cultivation realms, their physiques were far inferior to the green lotus true body. Avicii was shrouded by a sinister aura at all times. They were extremely tense, and coupled with the long journey, it took a huge toll on them. Before long, the cultivators left behind at the back would be targeted and killed by the purple snakes in this hell. After a few hours, without the need for Su Zimo to move a single finger, of the more than 400 Heaven Immortal experts that chased after him, only dozens were left. The other cultivators were all dead. The remaining cultivators gradually discovered some patterns. Most of the cultivators who died were at the back of the group. Those at the front of the group did not encounter any danger. Although the two perfected immortals were experienced and knowledgeable, they had never experienced such a scene. They did not know why the cultivators at the back would be attacked by the purple snakes. Everywhere in Avicii felt sinister. Sensing what was happening behind him, Su Zimo sneered internally. In Avicii, the purple snakes would not harm him at all. However, anyone else who was slightly further away from him would be attacked by the purple snakes and die on the spot. Su Zimo was relieved. With a hell suppression tripod as his backing, as long as he was careful in Avicii and made use of the purple snakes in this hell, he would be invincible. Go away! Right then, a woman hollered from the darkness far away. Su Zimo could only hear it clearly because he was the grade 11 green lotus true body. That voice sounded familiar. Su Zimo frowned slightly and slowed down. Chapter 2330. 2330 Book Immortal Yun Zhuge. 2330 Book Immortal Yun Zhu. This was Avicii. There were countless cultivators from all over the place who had barged in this time round. Su Zimo was still being hunted by two perfected immortals and did not have the mood to save anyone he did not know. However, that voice reminded him of someone he had never met before. Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo changed directions and followed the voice. After taking a few steps, a tunnel appeared in front of him, connected to the mountain peak. It was like an endless desert with corpses strewn everywhere. Many cultivators had flesh and blood remaining. It was clear that they had died not long ago. Unlike the situation in the karst cave behind him, the corpses of these cultivators were swollen and their skin was greenish-black. They emitted a foul stench and pus blood flowed beneath them. Not far away, a few black scorpions that were half the height of a human surrounded a woman in plain clothes. Their tails were raised and shone with a dark glint as they tested the waters, ready to attack at any moment. As for the plain-robed woman, she sat on the ground limply, as though she could not move. She held a jade brush in her hands and faced the surrounding black scorpions. Even under such circumstances, the plain-robed woman looked calm without any signs of embarrassment or wretchedness. Su Zimo felt that the plain-robed woman was extremely beautiful and looked familiar. However, he knew that he had never seen this person before. No matter what, he had to save the plain-robed woman. Su Zimo strode towards the plain-robed woman. The few black scorpions turned around and wanted to attack Su Zimo. However, before long, the black scorpions sensed something and scattered in all directions with frightened expressions. Soon, they burrowed into the desert and disappeared. It's you. The plain-robed woman was shocked when she saw Su Zimo. "Fellow Taoist, you've seen me before?" Su Zimo approached and asked with a smile. The plain-robed woman nodded slightly and did not hide anything. "We've met once." Pausing for a moment, she said in a seemingly curious manner, "But you shouldn't have seen me before." Su Zimo said, "Indeed, I've never seen you before. However, I remember your voice." "How shameless to bully the weak." Su Zimo looked at the plain-robed woman and suddenly said those words. The plain-robed woman was surprised as she recalled the scene at the Immortal Sect selection. At that time, Prince Yuanzhua brought perfected Immortal Jing Yu and the others to the Immortal Sect selection, wanting to take Su Zimo away. In the end, perfected Immortal Jing Yu even attacked Su Zimo despite his status as a perfected immortal. Back then, she was the one who secretly stepped in and resolved perfected Immortal Jing Yu's attack. At the same time, she said something to mock perfected Immortal Jing Yu. Those were the words Su Zimo just said. "To think that you would still remember this matter." The plain-robed woman smiled and felt a little happy. Firstly, she was out of danger. Furthermore, she knew that with Su Zimo by her side, she should not be in any danger in Avicii. Secondly, she had merely mentioned it casually back then. To think that this scholarly youth would remember it for so long. In the eyes of the plain-robed woman, she had always regarded Su Zimo as someone like Yun Ting, vibrant and energetic like a youth. "Of course I'd remember." Su Zimo said, "At that time if you hadn't stood in, I would have died, let alone have the chance to join Heaven and Earth Academy and cultivate till now." At the mention of that, the plain-robed woman felt a little ashamed and shook her head. "It's all thanks to Yang Ruoxu and Fairy Mo Qing that you're able to join Heaven and Earth Academy." Although she appeared and suppressed perfected Immortal Jing Yu at that time, she was wary when Zither Immortal Meng Yao arrived later on and did not insist on her confrontation with the latter. She was a princess of the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom after all. It was irrational for her to stand out and fight against Zither Immortal Meng Yao because of a stranger like Su Zimo. Because of that, Yang Ruoxu had to go against the suppression of the Zither Immortal before Fairy Mo Qing finally arrived. Su Zimo said, "We don't know each other. I'm already extremely grateful that you stood up for me, fellow Taoist." Right then, chaotic footsteps sounded from the tunnel behind him. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon, perfected Immortal Jing Yu, Xie Tianhong and the others chased after him in a wretched manner. This time round, there were only slightly more than 10 of them left. After this long journey, a hint of fear flashed through the eyes of the remaining cultivators, including the 2 perfected immortals. "Fellow Taoist, can you still move?" Su Zimo asked. "I'm being hunted down by my enemies. I have to leave as soon as possible." "I can't move." The plain-robed woman shook her head gently and pointed to her legs. "My feet were stung by the scorpions. Although the poison was suppressed by me for the time being, my legs could not move." Almost all the cultivators in this hell were dead after being stung by the scorpions. The fact that the plain-robed woman could suppress the poison for the time being was proof that she was not weak either. "Fellow Taoist, since it's a pressing situation, I'll carry you on my back to leave this place first before making further plans." Su Zimo was extremely decisive. He took a step forward and helped the woman up without giving her a chance to reply. Placing her on his back, he strode forward and sprinted. Throughout the entire process, the plain-robed woman was in a stump. By the time she reacted, she was already on Su Zimo's back. She had not expected Su Zimo to be so domineering that he would carry her and run without even asking her. Actually, Su Zimo did not think too much about it. He only knew that if he left the plain-robed woman behind, the poisonous scorpions would come looking for her and kill her after he left. The only way the plain-robed woman could survive was by following him. Of course, this involved the secret of the Hell Suppression Tripod, so he could not explain things clearly. However, Su Zimo realized that it was a little rude after carrying the woman on his back. There were only a few pieces of clothes between the 2 of them, and it was inevitable that there would be some friction and contact as they sprinted. The plain-robed woman blushed slightly and merely placed her hands on Su Zimo's shoulders, trying her best to prop up her upper body. Su Zimo remained silent and continued sprinting. The 2 of them had a tacit understanding and remained silent about this matter, pretending that nothing had happened. Su Zimo could not possibly throw the plain-robed woman down. Xie Tianhong and the others had just arrived and were panting from exhaustion. Before they could catch their breaths, they saw Su Zimo carry a woman on his back and turn to flee. Xie Tianhong was so angry that he nearly fainted. Hurry and chase. The two perfected immortals had just caught their breath when they saw a few black scorpions crossing the desert not far away, glaring covetously. No one dared to linger and could only grit their teeth to continue chasing after Su Zimo. If I'm not wrong, that woman earlier on seemed to be one of the four great fairies. The book Immortal. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu frowned. The book Immortal? Xie Tianhong snapped out of his stupor. Yes, that's her. The book Immortal is a princess of the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom. If I step in, she should give me some face and stand on our side. Fellow Taoist, are you one of the four great fairies, book Immortal Yun Zhu? Xie Tianhong shouted as he ran. I'm the prince of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom Spirit Cloud County, Xie Tianhong. I've met you at the Divine Firmament meet before. There was no response from the front. Fairy Yun Zhu, the person beneath you is a great enemy of mine. Please make a move and restrain him. I'll be extremely grateful and will definitely repay you immensely. Xie Tianhong shouted again. There was still no response. Xie Tianhong blushed and grit his teeth. Just as he was about to shout again, Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon sighed and shook his head. Your Highness, forget it. Chapter 2331. 2331 3 Pure Ones Jade Manuals. 2331 3 Pure Ones Jade Manual. You're the book Immortal. Although the plain-robed woman did not reply, Su Zimo was still surprised when he heard Xie Tianhong shout and could not help but ask. Why? I don't look befitting? Yun Zhu smiled and asked instead. Su Zimo replied, No, I'm merely surprised to meet you in Avicii. Pausing for a moment he continued, I'm also surprised at the fact that the person who stood in to help me at the Immortal Sect selection was one of the legendary four great fairies, the book Immortal. The legendary four great fairies? We're not that high and mighty. Yun Zhu teased. Furthermore, you know three of the four great fairies. At the Immortal Sect selection, the Zither Immortal and the Painting Immortal even fought over you. You must be joking, fellow Taoist. Su Zimo broke out in sweat. He knew that Yun Zhu had only mentioned it casually and did not take it to heart. Su Zimo had interacted with three of the four great fairies before. Although the three of them were peerless beauties with devastatingly alluring faces, their personalities, styles, temperaments and character were different. Zither Immortal Meng Yao was arrogant, cold and extremely vengeful. Painting Immortal Mo Qing was quiet and indifferent, as though she did not take anything to heart. No matter who it was, she was lukewarm to them and would not get close to anyone. As for book Immortal Yun Zhu, she had a gentle personality. When speaking to her, one would feel comfortable and could not help but relax. Book Immortal Yun Zhu exuded a noble aura that even exceeded the other two fairies. This aura did not stem from her background, status or appearance. This was something that was consolidated after reading countless poems and ancient books and was indescribable. When Su Zimo was young, he once read a poem describing the radiant aura of a scholar. Now, from the book Immortal, he truly experienced that radiance. He had already seen three of the four great fairies and did not know what sort of a person the chess immortal would be like. What are you thinking about? Right then, when Yun Zhu saw Su Zimo fall silent, she suddenly asked, Are you wondering about the chess immortal? You can even guess that. Su Zimo was surprised. Yun Zhu smiled. It's just a wild guess. As for the chess immortal, she only likes two things in her life. One is chess and the other is combat. If she notices you, you only have two choices. You can either play a game of chess with her or fight her. It's better for me not to meet her. Su Zimo chuckled bitterly. On second thought, he recalled something and asked in a seemingly casual manner, Fellow Taoist Yun Zhu, where are you from? Yun Zhu was smart. The moment Su Zimo asked that question, she could guess what he was thinking. There's no need to guess. Yun Ting is my younger brother. Yun Zhu said. Su Zimo coughed gently. Indeed, he had that guess in his heart. However, he was too embarrassed to ask her directly. Therefore he chose an indirect approach. To think that Yunju would be so direct. Back then, I did not know that he went to the emperor's tomb. Yunju said, "No matter what, I have to thank you for showing mercy in the emperor's tomb. It's not to that extent. I only defeated him by luck." Su Zimo recalled that battle. Apart from the power of his bloodline, he had almost released all his foundational methods before finally defeating Yun Ting. That was also the most difficult battle he had encountered since he ascended. At the mention of that, Su Zimo could not help but recall the jade talisman that he had kept in his storage bag for many years. It was the item that Prince Yuanzhua valued the most and was also something he fought with Yun Ting for. "What's the use of that jade talisman?" Su Zimo asked. "I heard that it has something to do with a taboo mystic classic." Yunju said, "It's a rather famous taboo mystic classic and is a cultivation technique that the longevity great emperor cultivated in the previous era. It's called the Three Pure Ones Jade Manual." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. It was a cultivation technique cultivated by a great emperor. Yunju continued, "As the name implies, there are 3 jade manuals for the 3 pure ones. They are the Supreme Pure, Jade Pure and Grand Pure Jade Manuals. After the longevity great emperor passed away, the 3 pure ones Jade Manual dispersed and passed through the hands of different cultivators. Many years later, it finally gathered in the hands of an immortal emperor. This immortal emperor was the one in the emperor's tomb. Unfortunately, he could not advance further and suffered a terrifying curse, dying on the spot. It said that this immortal emperor knew that he did not have long to live. Before his death, he placed the 3 pure ones Jade Manual in 3 different ruins and left it for fated people. To be precise, this jade talisman is related to one of the ruins. There should be more than one such jade talisman. No one knows who will finally obtain the jade manuals after entering the ruins. Su Zimo exhaled deeply. It was only now that he understood the meaning behind the jade talisman. Yunju continued, "From what I know, the Supreme Pure and Grand Pure Jade Manuals already have owners. It's still a mystery who has the Supreme Pure Jade Manual. However, the Grand Pure Jade Manual is in the hands of a Heaven Immortal expert in the Grand Firmament Immortal domain. Only the Jade Pure Jade Manual has yet to appear. If I'm not wrong, the Jade Talisman you obtained should be related to the ruin of the Jade Pure Jade Manual." Yunju paused for a moment before continuing. "Every single one of the 3 pure ones Jade Manual is a supreme immortal cultivation technique. It's not difficult for anyone who obtains one of them to cultivate to the perfected immortal realm, and there's even a high chance they can become an immortal king. If one's talent and opportunities are enough, there's a high chance they can advance to the Emperor realm. Furthermore, it's said that after the 3 pure ones Jade Manual is fused into one, there will be even more mysterious changes." Back then, the longevity great emperor comprehended this profound meaning and was able to live a long life. Su Zimo said, "There has been no reaction ever since this jade talisman was with Meal. Wait patiently." Yunju told him everything she knew about the jade talisman without hiding anything. "May I ask what you're doing in Avicii, fellow Taoist?" Su Zimo put away the matter of the jade talisman for the time being and asked. "There are many secrets about the infinite great emperor." Yunju said, "I've read some records about him but there are many blanks. Therefore, I'm very curious about him and want to look for some answers in Avicii." "The secrets of the infinite great emperor." Su Zimo frowned slightly. Yunju said, "For example, what was the original intention of establishing Avicii?" "I heard that it's to suppress evil." "Perhaps, perhaps not." To that, Yunju did not say much nor did she have an answer. After a while, when she saw that Su Zimo seemed to be unfamiliar with the environment and terrain and was merely running around, she could not help but ask, "Don't you know anything about Avicii?" "No." Su Zimo shook his head. "I don't even know what the purple snakes I encountered previously and the poisonous scorpions that surrounded you were. They are all living beings of hell transformed from malevolent ghosts of this place." Yunju replied confusedly before thinking to herself, "He has the hell suppression tripod. How does he know nothing about Avicii?" After a brief pause, she continued, "If I'm not wrong, the hell suppression tripod should be with you, right?" When he heard that, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and his expression changed slightly. Fairy Yunju was even almost thrown off his back. Chapter 2332. 2332 Nobody can leave. 2332 Nobody can leave. Ever since Feng Cantion escaped from Absolute Thunder City and used the Hell Suppression Tripod, Su Zimo rarely used this weapon because he was worried that he would be recognized. Back in the Immortal Sect selection, he did not use the Hell Suppression Tripod even when he was hunted by more than 100 execution guards. This was a secret that he had hidden deeply. To think that Book Immortal Yunzhu would know about this. What, you even want to silence me? Lying on Su Zimo's back, Yunzhu could clearly feel his muscles tense up and she could not help but chuckle. Their cheeks were very close and he could smell Yunzhu's fragrant breath as she spoke. Su Zimo felt a ripple in his heart and remained silent. Don't be nervous. Yunzhu patted Su Zimo on the shoulder gently. I've read many books and know more about the infinite great emperor. Therefore, after I heard about the battle at Absolute Thunder City, I vaguely guessed that the bronze square tripod that appeared might be the legendary Hell Suppression Tripod. Even immortal kings might not be able to recognize the Hell Suppression Tripod. After all, it's been way too long. Su Zimo asked, then how do you know that the Hell Suppression Tripod is with me? Back when Yun Ting returned from the Emperor's tomb, he described the details of your fight to me. He said that although the Buddhist techniques you released were clearly cultivation techniques of the lower worlds, they were extremely powerful. Furthermore, your essence spirit was extremely strong and you could release 3 essence spirit secret skills in succession. Yunzhu said, no matter how I thought about it, the only way to refine your essence spirit and empower the Buddhist techniques to such a great extent is through the Prajna Nirvana Sutra cultivated by the infinite great emperor back then. From what I know, this cultivation technique is etched on the inner walls of the Hell Suppression Tripod. Although Su Zimo did not say anything, he was extremely impressed. The fact that Yunzhu could deduce so many things based on some clues was indeed impressive. At the same time, Su Zimo was relieved when he saw how honest Yunzhu was. If Yunzhu truly had other intentions, there was no need for her to say anything. Instead, her actions would alert him and attract his attention. What else do you know? Su Zimo asked. Yunzhu said, because of the Hell Suppression Tripod, none of the living beings in Avicii dare to approach you. Pausing for a moment, Yunzhu asked in confusion however, based on my speculation, you possess the Hell Suppression Tripod and you know the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. You should be able to control Avicii. Why do you know nothing about this place? Control Avicii? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. But soon he understood the reason. The Hell Suppression Tripod was the key to Avicii. Furthermore, he knew the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and possessed the Hell Suppression Tripod. It was equivalent to inheriting the inheritance of the infinite great emperor. Therefore, it was only logical for him to take over Avicii. What can you sense when your spirit consciousness surges into the Hell Suppression Tripod? Yunzhu asked again. I can only sense 4 sacred souls half asleep. Everything else is chaos. Su Zimo did not hide anything. Yunzhu might know more about Avicii, the infinite great emperor and even the Hell Suppression Tripod than him. Yunzhu pondered for a moment and analyzed, perhaps your essence spirit realm is not high enough. Back then, the Hell Suppression Tripod was an emperor weapon after all. Even if it was damaged and its cultivation realm fell, it still contained the spirit consciousnesses of the sacred souls and could be considered as a sentient dharmic treasure. You can try again if your essence spirit is able to reach the perfected one realm. The two of them conversed but Su Zimo did not stop in his tracks. Even though he was carrying someone on his back, he was still extremely fast and his breathing was steady. In that short period of time, there were less than 10 people chasing after him and the rest had already died in the desert. Apart from the 2 perfected immortals, the remaining few people, Xie Tianhong included, could not hold on for much longer either. I can't take it anymore. Suddenly, Xie Tianhong let out a deep growl and paused in his tracks. Avicii was way too huge and boundless with a complex terrain. He realized that he could not catch up to Su Zimo no matter what. Along the way, he could only watch as the people around him fell one after another and the number of people remaining decreased. Once fear was born, it could not be suppressed. Xie Tianhong did not want to continue chasing. He wanted to leave. He had had enough of the atmosphere and environment here. Continue chasing. I'll leave first. Xie Tianhong took out a teleportation jade badge from his storage bag and crushed it. An incomparably domineering spatial power burst forth and shook the void. The void where the Jade badge shattered distorted and caved in slightly. However, everything returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Nothing changed. Xie Tianhong was stunned. How did this happen? Xie Tianhong looked at perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon and perfected Immortal Jingyu and said instinctively, "Didn't they say that there are cracks in Avicii and even a Heaven Immortal Demon Beast managed to escape?" The two perfected Immortals exchanged glances and their hearts sank as well. If this teleportation Jade badge could not tear through the space here and take Xie Tianhong away, it meant that neither of them could leave either. Even immortal kings could not leave this place. Xie Tianhong was not the only one flustered. Perfected Immortal Jingyu and perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon were as well. Right then, a few cultivators at the side suddenly fell into a sand pit and were dragged in by the poisonous scorpions beneath the desert, letting out tragic cries. The longer they delayed, the further they were from Su Zimo. Many poisonous scorpions closed in secretly and attacked. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon hollered, "Let's leave this place first." Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon grabbed Xie Tianhong's arm and released his blood qi, speeding in the direction Su Zimo left in. On the other side. Although Su Zimo did not stop, he noticed the commotion behind him. Avicii should be a trap. Suddenly, Yunju said, "There might not be any cracks in Avicii. You mean to say that all the cultivators that enter now will be trapped in Avicii?" Su Zimo asked with a frown. "Not trapped but buried here," Yunju said in a deep voice. "You have the Hell Suppression Tripod and can protect yourself in Avicii. However, everyone else will suffer the frenzied attacks of the living beings of hell and die here without being able to escape." During this period of time, more than 100,000 cultivators from all over the heavenly world have entered Avicii. A single rumor was enough to bury 100,000 living beings in Avicii. Why would anyone make use of Avicii to set up such a trap? Su Zimo asked again. Yunju shook her head. "I don't know either. How's your legs?" Suddenly, Su Zimo recalled that Yunju was stung by a poisonous scorpion and looked down instinctively. Yunju's feet and legs were clearly more swollen than before. Although it was through her shoes and clothes, one could still vaguely see that her flesh was already greenish-black. His injuries were clearly worsening. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "We have to find a place to stop and cut open the wound to release the poisoned blood." Chapter 2333. 2333 Guidance of the Ice Butterfly. 2333 Guidance of the Ice Butterfly. At that moment, the two perfected Immortals and Xie Tianhong were still chasing behind. After all, perfected Immortals cultivated Dao fruits and used true essence to refine their flesh. Even without using divine powers or secret skills, their movement techniques were not weaker than the Green Lotus True Body. It was not easy for Su Zimo to shake off Xie Tianhong and the other two completely. However, the poison injuries on Yunju's body would not last long. At that thought, Su Zimo slowed down gradually with a killing intent. Perfected Immortals were an entire major cultivation realm above him, while the Green Lotus True Body had just advanced to grade 11 and had yet to grow to its peak. Even in melee combat, he might not be able to fight against perfected Immortal experts. However, if he made use of the Hell Suppression Tripod and took them by surprise, he would have a chance to kill the two perfected Immortals. Almost all divine weapons and dermic treasures could not be used in Avicii. The moment they were taken out, they would be tainted by the Avicii Fiend Qi and lose their sharpness and dermic powers. However, the Avicii Fiend Qi could not affect the Hell Suppression Tripod at all. Right now, Su Zimo could not make use of the dermic powers in the Hell Suppression Tripod. However, he could rely on its indestructibility to smash two perfected Immortals to death. No matter how strong the flesh of a perfected Immortal was, it could not defend against the sharpness of the Hell Suppression Tripod. "What do you want to do?" Sensing that Su Zimo had slowed down, Yunju could not help but whisper, "Perfected Immortals have condensed Dao fruits and refined their bodies and bloodlines with true essence. The power released by every single move of a perfected Immortal expert is not weaker than supreme divine powers. Your cultivation realm is too low. Even if your body is strong and you're ferocious in melee combat, It'll be difficult for you to kill two perfected immortal experts. It's too risky. Su Zimo remained silent. Yunzhu was right. However, while he would not be affected even if he continued running without getting rid of the trouble behind him, Yunzhu might die from the poison. Right then, a white spot of light flew over at an extremely fast speed. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The white spot of light seemed to be heading towards him. The living beings in Avicii would keep their distance from him. Why would anything take the initiative to approach him? In the blink of an eye, the white spot of light approached. Su Zimo focused his gaze and could not help but freeze. It was a white butterfly that looked extremely similar to the one at Fairy Mo Qing's side. Ice butterfly. When Yunzhu saw the white butterfly, she quickly recognized the origin of its bloodline. Su Zimo murmured softly, "This ice butterfly seems to be the one at the side of Senior Sister Mo Qing. Could Senior Sister Mo Qing be in Avicii as well?" The ice butterfly circled around Su Zimo before flying in the direction it came from. Before it flew far, it stopped and turned to look at Su Zimo. It was clear that it wanted Su Zimo to follow it. "Let's take a look over there," Yunzhu said softly. "But your injuries," Su Zimo looked worried. "It's fine, I can still hold out for a while," Yunzhu said. "If fellow Taoist Mo Qing is trapped here as well, you have to help her. Furthermore, with fellow Taoist Mo Qing around, the two perfected immortals behind us might not dare to attack you." "All right." Su Zimo nodded and changed directions, following the ice butterfly forward. Naturally, Xie Tianhong and the other two were still hot on his tail. Before long, a boundless black mountain range appeared before them, as though it was gathered in the desert. There was a cave at the foot of the mountain that resembled the mouth of a gigantic beast, and the ice butterfly flew in. Su Zimo followed suit. After passing through a tunnel, his vision cleared up as though he had passed through a water barrier to think that there was another world. This should be in the middle of the Black Mountain peak. The middle of the mountain formed a gigantic space that seemed to be formed naturally without any signs of artificial intervention. Su Zimo carried Yunzhu on his back. The moment he entered, he looked around and could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. He was on guard. Swish, swish, swish. After Su Zimo and Yunzhu entered, countless gazes landed on them. There were scrutiny, hostility, killing intent and probing. Many people's eyes lit up when they saw Yunzhu's appearance. They glared at her intently as though they wanted to skin her alive. Yunzhu was beautiful and had an outstanding aura. Because she was injured from the poison, she looked weaker. It was an appearance that tugged at their heartstrings. Although Su Zimo could not use his spirit consciousness to scan in Avicii, he could roughly deduce that the thousands of cultivators in this cave should be from the Fiend domain. For cultivators of the Fiend domain, their gazes, auras, expressions and everything else were different from cultivators of the Nine Firmament Immortal domain and the Pure Land of the Buddhist monasteries. Su Zimo could not tell the cultivation realms of the other party as well. However, cultivators who dared to enter Avicii were at least Heaven Immortals. There were more than 10 cultivators who were surrounded by thousands of cultivators. It was evident that their statuses were different. Their auras were terrifying and there was a high chance that they were perfected immortal experts. Over there. Yunzhu felt disgusted by the thousands of fiend cultivators staring at her. She pointed in the direction of the ice butterfly and reminded softly. Su Zimo turned around. Opposite the thousands of cultivators, on the other side of the cave, a woman in snow-white robes stood quietly with an indifferent and calm expression, out of place with the sinister surroundings. She merely stood there motionlessly like a beautiful painting. Painting Immortal Mo Qing. The ice butterfly returned to Mo Qing's side and landed on her shoulder. Senior Sister Mo Qing. Su Zimo carried Yunzhu on his back and hurried to Mo Qing's side, shouting. Mo Qing turned to look at Su Zimo and nodded slightly. Thereafter, her gaze landed on Yunzhu and she frowned slightly in confusion. You guys. Su Zimo and Yunzhu looked a little intimate. Yunzhu explained hurriedly. I was surrounded by the poisonous scorpions outside earlier on and was injured, unable to move. Fellow Taoist Su was the one who saved me. Oh. Mo Qing replied indifferently. Senior Sister, why did this ice butterfly? Su Zimo was puzzled and could not help but ask. Mo Qing said, Little Butterfly said that she sensed your aura, so I asked her to bring you over and hide here. Su Zimo noticed something unusual about this place as well. There were no traces of living beings from hell in the cave, as though they could be isolated outside. Your cultivation isn't high. Why are you here? It's so dangerous. Mo Qing glanced at Su Zimo. Although her tone was reproachful, it was not harsh and no one would feel uncomfortable hearing it. Mo Qing had no other intentions. In her opinion, Su Zimo was her junior brother. As a senior sister, there were some things she had to say. However, at the thought that none of the cultivators here could leave this place, there was no need for her to blame Su Zimo. Su Zimo coughed gently and did not explain. He had the hell suppression tripod with him and there was probably no one in Avicii who could move around as safely as he could. Yunju naturally knew that as well. She could not help but purse her lips and smile. Lowering her head slightly, she whispered into Su Zimo's ear, "Fellow Taoist Su, your senior sister is worried about you." Initially, Yunju merely wanted to tease Su Zimo. Worried that Mo Qing would hear it, she naturally moved closer. The warmth beside Su Zimo's ears brought about an itchy sensation. Accompanied by a fragrance, his heart could not help but skip a beat as he blushed. Chapter 2334. 2334 White Bones Sect. 2334 White Bones Sect. Su Zimo knew that Yunju did it unintentionally. He composed himself hurriedly and tilted his head slightly. Right then, perfected Immortal Jingyu, perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon and Xie Tianhong barged in as well. When they saw the scene here, the thousands of fiend cultivators gathered were stunned for a moment with grim expressions. Perfected Immortal Jingyu and perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon exchanged glances and quickly noticed something unusual about this place. This place did not seem to be attacked by living beings of hell. However, there were thousands of fiend cultivators here and all of them were menacing and reeked of blood. It was clear that they were not friendly people. Su Zimo is over there. The moment Xie Tianhong caught sight of Su Zimo, he ground his teeth in hatred. If not for that person, why would he be trapped here and in danger? His status, all his trump cards and the thousands of troops of Spirit Cloud County were useless in Avicii. Your Highness, don't be hasty. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon said in a low voice. The painting Immortal is here as well. She's also a cultivator of Heaven and Earth Academy like Su Zimo. If we attack now, we might not win. The book Immortal, Yunju, was poisoned and lost her combat strength. The low-level Heaven Immortal, Su Zimo, was also negligible. If they were up against the painting Immortal alone, perfected Immortal Jingyu and perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon should be able to win if they joined forces. However, there was a group of fiend cultivators watching them covetously and the two perfected Immortals did not dare to act rashly. If they were to fight and end up with an internecine outcome, the fiend cultivators would swarm forward and they would not even have the chance to escape or resist. Xie Tianhong gradually calmed down as well. Suppressing the rage in his heart, he nodded. The two perfected Immortals pondered for a moment and walked towards Su Zimo. No matter what, Su Zimo, painting Immortal Mo Qing and book Immortal Yunju were from the divine firmament Immortal domain. The fiend cultivators on the other end were murderous and had hostile expressions. Xie Tianhong and the other two would not foolishly take the initiative to approach either. Xie Tianhong and the other two arrived not far away from Su Zimo and the others. Without greeting them, they sat down to cultivate and recuperate. Su Zimo looked at Xie Tianhong and the other two and frowned slightly. Don't worry, with fellow Taoist Mo Qing and the fiend cultivators of White Bones Sect present, they won't dare to act rashly. Yunju said softly. White Bones Sect. Su Zimo's gaze shifted to the group of fiend cultivators on the other side of the cave. 16 cultivators stood in the middle of the thousands of fiend cultivators. Among the 16 cultivators, there was a beautiful middle-aged woman and an old man who seemed to have higher statuses. Right in the middle, there was only a man sitting there. Even the beautiful middle-aged woman and old man stood beside him with their hands by their sides, as though they were obeying this person. Beside the man's seat stood a gigantic black flag that depicted a human-shaped skeleton in a lotus position. It was sinister and extremely terrifying. White Bones Sect is an extremely powerful faction in the fiend domains. Yunju said, the founder of White Bones Sect, was born in the Infinite Era and cultivated the White Bones Fiend Sutra. At the level of an emperor, he was known as the White Bones Fiend Emperor and was extremely powerful. Later on, he was suppressed by the Infinite Great Emperor. In the Infinite Era, White Bones Sect was already destroyed by the Infinite Great Emperor. However, in this generation, a fiend cultivator who cultivated the White Bones Fiend Sutra appeared out of nowhere and re-established this ancient fiend sect. Right now, that fiend cultivator is known as Sect Master White Bones and is ranked 10 on the perfected fiend ranking. It's said that the White Bone Fiend Sutra he cultivated is incomplete. Therefore, he can't unleash the full power of this fiend technique. Yunju had read a lot of books, and the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom's library gathered news from all over the world. She had some understanding of the various factions and figures of the heavenly world. For example, Fairy Mo Qing was in seclusion in Heaven and Earth Academy all year round and was obsessed with painting. She did not even know much about many other sects and factions of the Nine Firmament Immortal domain, let alone White Bones Sect in the Fiend domain. It's White Bones Sect. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. Although they did not recognize the background of the fiend cultivators, they had heard of the name of Sect Master White Bones. Ranked 10 on the perfected fiend ranking. There were only 10 spots on the perfected fiend ranking. Although Sect Master White Bones seemed like he was at the bottom, the White Bones Fiend Sutra he cultivated was merely an incomplete version. It was clear how terrifying his methods were. Furthermore, neither perfected Immortal Jing Yu, perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon, or even the Book Immortal and Painting Immortal could reach the 10th spot of the perfected Immortal ranking. The reason why the Book Immortal and Painting Immortal were famous was not because of their combat strength. Furthermore, battles for the perfected Immortal ranking generally did not end with death. However, it was different for the perfected Fiend ranking. In the Fiend domain, every single spot on the perfected Fiend ranking was piled with endless blood and corpses and was filled with killing. Even at the bottom, experts of the perfected Fiend ranking possessed heaven-defying combat strength and were extremely terrifying. Yunju whispered, "If we're not in Avicii and there's no essence spirit restriction, I might be able to fight against Sect Master White Bones if I join forces with fellow Taoist Mo Qing." Yunju did not continue, but Su Zimo understood. In Avicii, even if they joined forces with perfected Immortal Jing Yu and perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon, they would not be a match for Sect Master White Bones, let alone her and Mo Qing. Su Zimo's gaze landed on the man sitting among the fiend cultivators. The person wore a pitch-black cloak and his cheeks were scrawny. His eyes were sunken and he wielded a bone saber that was propped on the ground. It was white all over and shone with a cold glint. Su Zimo raised his brow. Even the sentient dermic treasures of perfected immortals would be corroded and lose their dermic powers if they were exposed in Avicii. However, that bone saber was still sharp. That saber. Yunju's gaze focused as she murmured, "Could it be the emperor weapon of the White Bones Fiend Emperor in the past? By obtaining that bone saber, it means that Sect Master White Bones might have already obtained the inheritance of the White Bones Fiend Emperor here. Indeed, no one in this cave could match a peerless perfected fiend with an emperor weapon. Furthermore, he had thousands of fiend cultivators by his side." Just as Su Zimo was observing Sect Master White Bones, the beautiful middle-aged woman beside him winked at Su Zimo with a smile. She even stuck out her tongue and licked her lips in a flirtatious manner. Such a simple bewitchment technique had no effect on Su Zimo at all. In fact, he felt a little disgusted. Compared to the naturally charming Demoness Ji, the beautiful middle-aged woman before him was like a pink skeleton in Su Zimo's eyes. The two people besides Sect Master White Bones are his protectors and are both top-tier perfected fiend experts. Yunju said, "The old man on the left is called Old Man Skeleton. The beautiful middle-aged woman who seduced you is called Madame Jade Bones. She loves handsome men and has countless admirers around her. However, none of her escorts have good endings. All of them would be sucked into bones before long. You have to be careful." Su Zimo knew that Yunju was merely saying it casually and could not help but laugh bitterly. Apart from Sect Master White Bones and the two protectors, the 14 black-robed cultivators around them are also perfected fiend experts. Yunju continued, "The 14 of them are known as the 14 Bone Fiends." Chapter 2335. 2335 Healing after purging poison. 2335 Healing after purging poison. The 14 bone fiends and 2 protectors meant that there were 16 perfected fiends. There was also a peerless fiend like Sect Master White Bones who was ranked 10th on the perfected fiend ranking and had thousands of fiends under his lead. Such a scene was indeed shocking. White Bones' sect must have lost quite a number of people as well to be able to reach this place. Let's heal first. Su Zimo placed Yunju down gently and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he carried her and walked to a dark corner not far away. Visibility was not high in Avicii, and they could avoid the gazes of most people here. Even in the cultivation world, women's feet were extremely private places and could not be shown or touched by outsiders casually. That was the reason why women's feet were often compared to jade. Sensing Su Zimo's intentions, Yunju was touched and said gently, "Thank you." Yunju's feet were stung by the poisonous scorpions. At that moment, the poison had extended to her legs. Her legs were already swollen and she could not feel anything. It was extremely difficult for her to remove her shoes and socks. Su Zimo said, "I'll get senior sister Emoqing to help." Yunju nodded. Emoqing nodded slightly and turned to Yunju. She squatted down and asked, "What should I do?" "Help me take off my shoes and socks. Use the sharpness of this jade brush to cut a wound on the area that was stung." Yunju handed the jade brush in her hands to Emoqing. "Thank you." That jade brush was a treasure she found in Avicii. Although its cultivation realm had fallen, it was also an emperor weapon back in the past, and that was why it was still sharp. Su Zimo was relieved and stood up silently. He walked not far away and stood with his back facing Yunju and Emoqing, blocking the vision of Xie Tianhong and the other two. Xie Tianhong was stealing glances over. Now that his line of sight was suddenly blocked by Su Zimo, his expression darkened as he harumphed coldly. A rustling sound came from the corner behind her. Emoqing should be helping Yunju remove her shoes and socks. "Fellow Daoist, be careful." Right then, Yunju's voice suddenly sounded. She seemed extremely tense. They must have encountered something unforeseen. In the darkness, a ball of greenish-black poisonous gas surrounded Emoqing's finger. She was already tainted by the poison just by touching Yunju's shoes and socks. "You're not deeply poisoned. Hurry and circulate your blood qi to force out the poison," Yunju urged hurriedly. Emoqing did not dare to be careless and channeled her blood qi continuously, washing it towards the poisoned finger. A moment later, the poison on her finger dissipated gradually. Although she was out of danger, Yunju's poison injuries were not resolved. "What should we do?" Emoqing frowned. If she were to step forward to help, she would be the first to be poisoned. "Let me do it." Right then, a voice sounded. Su Zimo had sensed the commotion and walked over. "You." Emoqing wanted to speak but stopped. Su Zimo said, "This poison shouldn't be able to hurt me. I can give it a try." Emoqing thought, "The poison is only one aspect. You're a man after all. How is it appropriate for you to do such a thing?" She turned around and looked at Yunju instinctively. Yunju lowered her head slightly and did not say anything, seemingly agreeable to it. Emoqing wanted to speak but was suddenly enlightened. Recalling the scene of Su Zimo barging in with Yunju on his back, she thought to herself, junior brother Su and fellow Taoist Yunju must have fallen in love. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been so intimate. At that thought, Emoqing merely reminded him to be careful before standing up to make way without saying anything. "Pardon me." Su Zimo squatted down and whispered. He reached out and touched Yunju's shoes and socks casually. His palm was fine without any poison. Emoqing was only relieved when she saw that. Yunju was not surprised. She thought that it was because Su Zimo had the hell suppression tripod with him. However, in reality, although the hell suppression tripod could suppress living beings of hell, it could not defend against the poison. The main reason why Su Zimo was safe and sound was because the grade 11 green lotus true body was immune to poison. Su Zimo composed himself and removed the shoes and sock on Yunju's feet, searching for the wounds. Both wounds were at the tip of Yunju's toes. Su Zimo made use of the sharpness of the jade brush to cut the tip of Yunju's toes. Green-black blood flowed out rapidly with a stench. A moment later, perhaps because Yunju's bloodline was extraordinary, Her legs gradually recovered from the swelling. Both of them heaved a sigh of relief. Actually, this scene was not as flirtatious as they had imagined. Yunju's feet were poisoned and had long lost feeling. She did not feel anything unusual when Su Zimo held them in his hands and merely felt a little embarrassed. As for Yunju's feet, they were greenish-black and swollen like two pig trotters. On Su Zimo's side, although he was holding the jade feet of one of the four great fairies, in his eyes, it was as though he was holding on to a pair of pig trotter. She could not think of anything inappropriate. Yunju raised her head slightly and looked at Su Zimo's side profile. She saw that his gaze was strange. Her heart skipped a beat and she guessed Su Zimo's thoughts. Bang! Yunju was secretly frustrated. She reached out and punched Su Zimo on the shoulder, hollering, "Stop imagining random things." Feeling a little guilty, Su Zimo coughed gently and did not dare to reply. He gently placed Yunju's feet down. Yunju was indignant and embarrassed. She could not help but say, "My feet are not usually like this." "Why yes." Su Zimo replied awkwardly and stood up hurriedly to flee. Although the two of them did not do anything overboard, outsiders did not think so. When Xie Tianhong saw Su Zimo and Yunju hiding in a corner, touching and muttering among themselves, his imagination ran wild. Xie Tianhong let out a sound and said in a strange manner, "To think that this is all there is to the great book Immortal, engaging in dirty acts with a disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy in public." Those words sounded extremely piercing and unpleasant. Even as an outsider, Mo Qing felt disgusted and frowned. Yunju sneered and raised her voice. "Where did this wild dog come from? Why is it barking so loudly?" "I'm sorry." Suddenly, Su Zimo's voice sounded. "This wild dog bites everyone in its sight. It's here because it was chasing me." Pausing for a moment, he glared at Xie Tianhong with a cold expression and said slowly, "If it continues biting randomly, I'm going to smash its canines." "You!" Xie Tianhong was enraged and bolted upright. Naturally, Su Zimo was fearless and strode forward with a lightning gaze. Fairy Mo Qing stood beside Su Zimo as well. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon frowned slightly and stood up to hold Xie Tianhong down, saying in a low voice, "Your Highness, calm down. The situation is unknown right now. Let's not get into a conflict with them first." Xie Tianhong smirked smugly and sat back down. The anger from earlier on seemed to have vanished instantly. This scene was witnessed by Sect Master White Bones, Madame Jade Bones and the other Fiend cultivators not far away. When Sect Master White Bones heard the words Book Immortal, his expression changed and he looked over. In his deep sockets, a pair of white eyes seemed to be able to penetrate the layers of darkness and see Yunju in the corner. Chapter 2336. 2336 Communication with the Prime Body. 2336 Communication with the Prime Body. Although the four great fairies were all from the divine firmament immortal domain, they were rather famous in the entire heavenly world. However, the Fiend cultivators of Whitebone's sect were far away in the Fiend domain and had never seen what the four great fairies looked like. Now that they heard the name of the book Immortal, a commotion broke out among Whitebone's sect. The gazes of many Fiend cultivators were attracted. Su Zimo looked at Xie Tianhong, who was not far away, and suddenly frowned. Initially, he thought that Xie Tianhong's words were merely to vent his emotions. However, on second thought, there was a high chance that Xie Tianhong revealed Yunju's identity intentionally to attract the attention of the Fiend cultivators of Whitebone's sect. How could a prince who could rule over a region be so short-tempered? Xie Tianhong's motive was to kill with a borrowed knife. The Fiend cultivators of Whitebone's sect were fearless in their actions. Furthermore, nobody knew if they could survive the next day after being trapped in a Vici. Under such circumstances, all the evil in the depths of their hearts would be triggered involuntarily and their fiendish nature would flare up. He he he. Suddenly, Madame Jade Bones chuckled and walked out of the crowd, twisting her waist along the way. Waving the silk cloth in her hands gently, she looked at Xie Tianhong in disdain. "Look at how jealous you are to see her lover." Xie Tianhong did not refute or get angry after being mocked by Madame Jade Bones and merely chuckled. He had already achieved his goal. "Young man, come over to my side. I'll have a heartfelt chat with you." Madame Jade Bones beckoned to Su Zimo with a smile. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent as he glanced at Madame Jade Bones expressionlessly before turning towards Yun Zhu. Even though Madame Jade Bones was ignored, she was not enraged and the glee in her eyes intensified. Hee hee. One of the 14 bone fiends gave a strange laugh and looked at Madame Jade Bones lustfully. Jade Bones, he doesn't fancy you. Why don't you just follow me instead? The crowd burst into laughter. Humph. Madame Jade Bones turned around and glared at the bone fiend, scolding jokingly. Lust bone fiend, your skills are too pathetic. You surrendered after 3 rounds. I'm not interested at all. Ha 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 ha. The laughter of the fiends intensified as they doubled over with laughter. Although Fairy Mo Qing could not understand what the other party was talking about, she realized that it was not anything good and could not help but frown. She was extremely beautiful to begin with, like a fairy in a painting. Her slight frown merely added to her charm. Gulps could be heard from the fiends of White Bones Sect and their eyeballs almost popped out. If cultivators or monks of the immortal domains or Buddhist monasteries were tempted, they would have to maintain their composure for the sake of their dignities. Naturally, cultivators of the fiend domain would not care about etiquette. Su Zimo noticed this and knew that something was bound to happen if they continued staying here. There was no way the 3 of them could defend against the fiends of White Bones Sect with their strength. Let's leave this place first. Su Zimo said softly. Yun Zhu had purged a lot of poisonous blood from her feet. Although she could not move yet, her life was not in danger and they could leave at any moment. She also sensed that the atmosphere in the cave was a little strange. This place could be divided into 3 factions. The 3 of them, Xie Tianhong's group of 3 and the cultivators of White Bones Sect. The difference between the 3 factions was immense. Although it seemed calm right now, any activity could break that calmness. However, the living beings of hell are ubiquitous outside. It'll be difficult for the 3 of us to hold out. Mo Qing was worried. Along the way here, she had seen too many cultivators die in Avicii and knew how terrifying those living beings were. It's fine. Yun Zhu said. Let's go out and take a look first. We can always return here if we can't hold out. Naturally, Yun Zhu knew Su Zimo's background. With the hell suppression tripod, they would not be in any danger as long as they followed Su Zimo. However, this was Su Zimo's secret and she would not spread it casually. All right. Mo Qing nodded. Su Zimo carried Yun Zhu on his back and walked towards the entrance with Mo Qing. Sect Master Whitebones' gaze shifted and he raised his head slightly when he noticed that. Old Man Skeleton understood and blocked Su Zimo and the other 2 in a flash. Of the 14 bone fiends, 8 charged forward along with 1,000 fiend cultivators. They swarmed the entrance as they looked at Su Zimo and the other 2 with evil intentions. Where are the 3 of you going? Lust Bone Fiend from earlier on asked with a smile. We can't leave anymore. Yun Zhu sighed gently. Let's retreat first and not fight them head-on. Su Zimo did a mental calculation as well. Even if he could kill 1 or 2 perfected fiends with the hell suppression tripod by surprise, he would not be able to break out of the encirclement of the fiend cultivators of White Bones Sect. Su Zimo remained silent and carried Yun Zhu on his back, retreating with Mo Qing. Sensible. Transformation Bone Fiend roared in laughter. Shatterbone Fiend pinched the joints of his fingers repeatedly and grinned. How unfortunate that we did not get to fight. My bones are itching to go. The fiends of White Bones Sect snickered and pointed in this direction while spouting filthy words. However, without any instructions from Sect Master White Bones, the fiends did not make any moves. After returning to his original spot, Su Zimo assumed a lotus position and remained silent. Although the fiends of White Bones Sect did not attack them, there was a possibility that they could do it at any moment. At the side, Xie Tianhong and the other 2 were up to no good either. He had to think of a way to deal with the current situation. While things in the cave looked calm on the surface, tensions were spreading beneath. Nobody knew when that peace would be broken. Su Zimo closed his eyes and tried to summon the martial Dao Prime body once more. Ever since he entered Avicii, he had been escaping and did not have much chance to establish a connection with the martial Dao Prime body. Since he could not leave now, he might as well calm down and attempt to sense the location of the martial Dao Prime body. Su Zimo secretly circulated the spirit consonance art, but there was still no reaction. Under normal circumstances, if the martial Dao prime body was also in Avicii, such a situation should not happen since his two true bodies were telepathic and he was aided by the spirit consonance art. Right now, Su Zimo's calls on this end were like rocks sinking into the ocean without any reaction. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and a thought flashed through his head. The Green Lotus Essence Spirit began to chant the Prajna Nirvana Sutra silently. Golden Sanskrit appeared in his consciousness and phantoms of Buddhas appeared. Dragons and elephants cried as Sanskrit sounded endlessly. Against the shock of Sanskrit, the hell suppression tripod trembled slightly and buzzed endlessly. Right then, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. He could finally sense the location of the martial Dao prime body. At the same time, he received feedback from the latter. Avicii was a world of its own with its own unique laws. The Green Lotus true body was in the lesser hells while the martial Dao prime body was in greater Avicii. No matter how the Green Lotus true body called out, he could not penetrate the rules of Avicii. In Avicii, there was only a single sound that could reach every corner and was not restricted by the rules of this place Sanskrit of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit in his heart. Although it was silent, that power could pass through layers of space and break through the laws to reach greater Avicii, reaching the ears of the martial Dao prime body. Chapter 2337. 2337 Reappearance. 2337 Reappearance. At the same time, in greater Avicii. The martial Dao prime body who was enduring endless pain suddenly opened his eyes and released two divine lights, invigorated. The opportunity to escape had appeared. Time, space and suffering was endless in greater Avicii. The martial Dao prime body did not know how long had passed outside or how he could leave. Here, the martial Dao prime body could not sense any direction. It was as though he was in a vast night without any light. With the appearance of the Green Lotus true body, the Sanskrit struck a chord in his heart. The Green Lotus true body was the light in the vast night. All he had to do was advance in the direction of the Green Lotus true body, and he could leave greater Avicii. The martial Dao prime body continued enduring endless pain and advanced in the direction of the Green Lotus true body. However, even after walking for a long time, the distance between the martial Dao prime body and the Green Lotus true body did not close at all. He seemed to have been stuck at the same spot the entire time. Space was endless. The space in greater Avicii was endless and continuous. Once the martial Dao prime body left a space, he would enter another. No matter where he was, he could not escape from greater Avicii and endured endless pain. Even if the martial Dao prime body sensed the Green Lotus true body and knew the direction to escape from Avicii, he could not leave. Right then, four beams of light suddenly appeared at the front and sped towards the martial Dao prime body. Under normal circumstances, greater Avicii was foggy without any light. But now, four beams of light had appeared in greater Avicii and could defend against the laws of this place. When the four beams of light approached, the martial Dao prime body finally understood. The Green Lotus true body sensed the location of the martial Dao prime body and brought out the four sacred souls, afraid that he would not be able to leave. After the battle at Great Tai Wei Mountain, the four sacred souls did not have much strength left, leaving only four faint lights. However, the four sacred souls were the weapon spirits of the hell suppression tripod after all. Although they were weak, they were not restricted by the laws of greater Avicii. Therefore, they sped the entire way and arrived beside the martial Dao prime body. The four sacred souls surrounded the martial Dao prime body, and the law of endless space of greater Avicii lost its effect on the latter instantly. With the guidance of the Green Lotus true body and the protection of the four sacred souls, the martial Dao prime body regained his five senses and saw the pitch-black and sinister Avicii gate once more. Previously, he was thrown down by Emperor Bo Soon. This time round, he was going to leave greater Avicii and return to the world. Avicii, in a cave on a black mountain peak. Su Zimo sat quietly at the side, as though he was resting with his eyes closed. Yun Zhu thought that Su Zimo had expended too much energy carrying her and was physically exhausted, so she did not disturb him. Fellow Taoist Mo Qing, why are you here in Avicii? Yun Zhu pulled Fairy Mo Qing and asked. A senior with high attainments in the Tao of painting from the academy died here. Mo Qing said, I heard that cracks appeared in Avicii and living beings could escape, so I came here to look for the senior's corpse and painting. You're referring to Senior Yu Daozi, right? Yun Zhu pondered for a moment before saying. Mo Qing nodded in slight surprise. It's no wonder why people are always talking about the book Immortal. Fellow Taoist, you're truly amazing and know everything. Compared to you, I'm much inferior. I only know how to paint. When Yun Zhu heard that, she smiled and said, I'm impressed that you're so good at painting, sister. I'm a few years older than you. If you don't mind, we can just address each other as sisters. Yes. Mo Qing nodded. Yun Zhu said, right, this cave is so strange and it seems like it can defend against living beings from hell. How did you find it, sister? Mo Qing said, not long after I fell, I accidentally caught sight of some marks left behind by Yu Daozi back then. Oh. Yun Zhu was surprised. Mo Qing continued, others might not be able to understand these marks, but I can recognize them. These are marks unique to Senior Yu Daozi's works. The marks seemed to be used for guidance, so I followed them and arrived here. By the time I arrived, the Fiend cultivators of Whitebone Sect were already here. Yun Zhu remained silent in deep thought. A moment later she whispered, since Senior Yu Daozi left such a clue and led you here, it's clear that there's something special about this place. Let's look around and see if there are any other secret passage exits. The situation isn't looking good right now. It's better for us to leave as soon as possible. Yes. Mo Qing nodded and looked at Yun Zhu's feet, wanting to speak but stopped. Although the swelling on Yun Zhu's legs had faded, the poison could not be purged completely. Relying on her own strength, Yun Zhu supported herself against the cold wall behind her and forced herself to stand up. She whispered, I don't have much combat strength now, but I can walk. Sister, help me walk around and pretend that you're helping me stretch. That way, we won't attract attention. Mo Qing understood and went forward to support Yun Zhu. Yun Zhu glanced at Su Zimo beside her. The latter was still in a lotus position with his eyes closed, as though he had already forgotten where he was. Noticing Yun Zhu's expression, Mo Qing whispered, Sister, don't worry. If anything happens, I'll attack with all my might. You guys can find an opportunity to escape without having to worry about me. In Mo Qing's opinion, Su Zimo was only a low-level heaven immortal and his combat strength was negligible. Yun Zhu was injured and had lost her combat strength. The ice butterfly had a weak physique and almost no combat strength in Avicii. She was the only one who could stand out in such a situation. Sister, don't say that. How can we abandon you and escape alone? Yun Zhu said. For some unknown reason, Yun Zhu felt her heart ache when she heard Mo Qing's words. She could not help but squeeze Mo Qing's palm gently. Let's go take a look over there. Yun Zhu encouraged her. We might be able to find an exit to sneak out. Pausing for a moment, Yun Zhu pursed her lips and smiled, saying softly, Don't worry, although this junior brother of yours doesn't have a high cultivation realm and can't fight those people head-on, he's extremely good at escaping. Mo Qing supported Yun Zhu and the two of them whispered as they scanned the darkness not far away. A large area of the cave was occupied by cultivators of Whitebone Sect and Yun Zhu and Mo Qing could not check many locations. Worried about Su Zimo's safety, the two of them did not dare to go too far and merely explore the edges of the nearby walls. Suddenly, Mo Qing stopped in her tracks and focused her gaze not far ahead. A blurry figure seemed to be sitting beneath a wall on the other side. The figure did not have any life force and had died many years ago, gripping a painting-like object tightly in his hands. As though she recalled something, Mo Qing supported Yun Zhu and took a few more steps forward nervously. Up close, Mo Qing could see clearly and recognize the figure. She could not help but sigh softly with a hint of sadness in her eyes. Chapter 2338. 2338 Blind. 2338 Blind. When Yun Zhu saw Mo Qing's expression, she vaguely guessed the identity of the corpse and whispered, It's Senior Yu Daozi of Heaven and Earth Academy, right? Yes. Mo Qing's heart was still heavy. Yun Zhu consoled. Senior Yu Daozi passed away here but his corpse was unburied. The fact that you're here is probably fate. Sister, while inheriting Senior Yu Daozi's inheritance, you can also bring this corpse back and bury it in Heaven and Earth Academy. The fact that he can return to his roots is probably a form of consolation for him. Mo Qing nodded. That's right. I'm going to take away Senior Yu Daozi's corpse. Pausing for a moment, she sighed gently. However, even if I obtain his inheritance and take his corpse with me, we can't leave this place. No matter what, let's put away Senior Yu Daozi's corpse first. Yun Zhu's gaze landed on the scroll in the skeleton's palm. She said softly, after so many years, this scroll has not been corroded by the Avicii Fiend Qi. It's clear that it's a rare treasure. This should be the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting drawn by Senior in his twilight years. Mo Qing said. I see. Yun Zhu revealed a look of realization. Just as Mo Qing was about to step forward, a sinister gust of wind blew past. In the blink of an eye, a skinny figure blocked the path of the two fairies. Old Man Skeleton of White Bones Sect. What are you doing? Mo Qing asked with a frown. Old Man Skeleton's wrinkled face was expressionless as he asked instead, what are the two of you doing? A few of the 14 bone fiends and 1,000 fiend demons gathered over as well, giggling as though they were watching a show. This corpse is a senior of my sect. Mo Qing said, I'm going to bring this senior's corpse back to the sect for burial. Oh. Old Man Skeleton raised his tone slightly. Hee hee. Lust Bone Fiend of the 14 Bone Fiends said with a smile. Beauty. He's a senior of your sect just because you say so? I can even claim that he's my father. At the side, Pride Bone Fiend said coldly, the flesh of this corpse has long rotted, leaving only a skeleton with tattered clothes. How can you be certain that he's a senior of your sect? Anyone can be all talk. Shatterbone Fiend sneered as well. No matter how good Mo Qing's temper was, she could no longer hold it in. However, even if she was angry, she would not express it too intensely. Her expression merely turned cold. The item in the senior's hands is the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting that he drew personally. This scroll can prove his identity. When she heard that, Yun Zhu frowned. Although revealing the origin of the scroll could prove Senior Yu Daozi's identity, there was a high chance that the other party would covet this treasure. At that thought, Yun Zhu suddenly spoke. The Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting uses a unique drawing technique to sketch 4 diagram. In the hands of others, even if it's an immortal king, they won't be able to tell anything if they don't know how to draw. Yun Zhu's meaning was clear. She was telling the Fiends of White Bones Sect that the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting would merely be a painting in their hands. She was not spouting nonsense, but the truth. Is that so? Beastbone Fiend rolled his eyes. Let me see what the hell is drawn on this painting exactly. As he said that, Beastbone Fiend arrived beside Yu Daozi's corpse and bent down, prepared to pick up the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting. He gave it a gentle tug, but it did not budge. Although Yu Daozi was dead, his palm was still gripping the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting tightly. Even though he knew that he would most likely be doomed upon entering Avicii, he wanted to come here and complete the final ghost diagram. It was clear how much he valued this painting. The Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting contained his inheritance, dermic Dao and painstaking efforts. Ha ha ha. The few bone fiends at the side could not help but burst into laughter when they saw that Beastbone Fiend could not make it budge. Beastbone Fiend felt embarrassed and his heart sank. With a menacing expression, he took a step forward and stomped heavily on the wrist of Yu Daozi's corpse. Crack! Yu Daozi's wrist was snapped by Beastbone Fiend. Even though Yu Daozi was an immortal king expert back then, he could not withstand the corrosion of time after so many years. Furthermore, he was corroded by the Avicii Fiend Qi all year round. You! Mo Qing was shocked and furious when she saw that. However, Old Man Skeleton, a few bone fiends and 1,000 fiends blocked her path. She could not get through at all. Yun Zhu grabbed Mo Qing's wrist gently and shook her head gently, indicating for the latter to not be reckless. Mo Qing looked at Beastbone Fiend with a cold gaze. She was usually obsessed with painting and rarely fought with others. There had never been a moment such as now where she wanted to kill Beastbone Fiend who was in front of her. Beastbone Fiend sneered and spread the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting after obtaining it. The moment a quarter of the painting was unfolded, a figure with golden hair, Blue eyes and a body filled with golden light appeared on it, glaring at Beastbone Fiend with a burning gaze. Ah! Beastbone Fiend exchanged glances with the figure on the painting and suddenly, his expression changed as he shrieked. His eyes exploded right away. There were only 2 bloody holes left on his face that were extremely terrifying. Instinctively, Beastbone Fiend threw away the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting. Old Man Skeleton narrowed his gaze slightly and took a step forward with a grim expression, closing the painting hurriedly. Oh! Beastbone Fiend clutched his eyes with both hands and fresh blood flowed through the gaps between his fingers as he let out a tragic cry. If they were outside, perfected fiends could recover from such injuries in the blink of an eye. However, Avicii was a world of its own and was isolated from heaven and earth essence chi. If one's eyeballs were ruptured and they were blinded, they would not be able to recover. You deserved this, Mo Qing said coldly. Ah! How dare you harm me, slut? I'm going to kill you. Beastbone Fiend waved both hands and charged in the direction of Mo Qing's voice. Old Man Skeleton glanced sideways at Sect Master White Bones who was not far away. Sect Master White Bones shook his head gently. Old Man Skeleton understood and held back Beastbone Fiend with his skinny arm without having to exert much strength. Bear with it. Don't embarrass yourself in front of the Sect Master. At the mention of the Sect Master, Beastbone Fiend shuddered and panted heavily before calming down. Old Man Skeleton carried the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting and turned towards Sect Master White Bones, prepared to hand over the treasure. What are you doing? Mo Qing took a step forward and stopped Old Man Skeleton, saying in a deep voice, Return the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting to me. This belongs to Heaven and Earth Academy. I can verify her words. Right then, Xie Tianhong stood out and declared, Fairy Mo Qing is one of the 4 great fairies, the painting Immortal, from Heaven and Earth Academy. This Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting is indeed from Heaven and Earth Academy. Others might not be able to understand this painting. Fairy Mo Qing should be the only one who can do it. Painting Immortal Mo Qing, one of the 4 great fairies. The eyes of the fiends of White Bones Sect lit up when they heard that. Chapter 2339. 2339 You have a death wish. 2339 You have a death wish. Turning around, Yun Zhu glared at Xie Tianhong coldly and cursed internally at his shamelessness. On the surface, Xie Tianhong was standing out to help Mo Qing. However, in reality, he was deliberately revealing Mo Qing's identity as the painting Immortal. Previously, Xie Tianhong had already revealed her identity intentionally. Now, he was using the same trick again. Furthermore, it was even more sinister this time round. Painting Immortal Mo Qing and book Immortal Yun Zhu. I've heard a lot about you guys. Sect Master White Bones spoke slowly with a hoarse and unpleasant voice, as though a stone was sliding in his throat. That explains the peerless auras the 2 of you possess. So you're both from the 4 great fairies. Madame Jade Bones chuckled with a hint of jealousy in her eyes. What beautiful faces, how enviable. Mo Qing tried her best to compose herself as she looked at Old Man Skeleton and said in a deep voice, Fellow Taoist, please return the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting. Return. Old Man Skeleton raised his brows slightly. Everything in this cave belongs to White Bones Sect and our Sect Master alone. Who should I be returning this to? Mo Qing watched as Old Man Skeleton took away the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting and offered it to Sect Master White Bones. This time round, she did not step forward to stop him. She knew that Yun Zhu was by her side and her junior brother from the academy was not far away. She had to try her best to protect the 2 of them. She could not let the 3 of them fall into a desperate situation because of the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting. Although the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting was extremely important to Mo Qing, she endured it and walked towards Yu Daozi's corpse silently. Beauty, where are you going? Lustbone Fiend spread his hands and blocked Mo Qing's path with a smirk. Mo Qing said indifferently, This is a senior of Heaven and Earth Academy. I'm here to collect his corpse. You guys took away the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend painting, but I'm going to take away this corpse and bury it back in the academy. Fairy Mo Qing, you might not have understood what I just said. Old Man Skeleton walked over leisurely and said slowly, I've just said that everything in this cave belongs to our sect master alone, including this corpse.
You!
Mo-Ching clenched her fists slightly and hollered in rage. This corpse is of no use to you guys, nor is it a treasure. Don't go overboard.
My, how scary.
Madame Jade Bones said in a serious manner, painting Immortal Mo-Ching is angry. Lustbone Fiend licked his lips. You look so good even when you're angry. My heart melts. Yunju sighed internally. Mo-Ching was still a little naive. The argument before them had started because of the divine ghost Immortal Fiend painting. However, in reality, the Fiends of Whitebone's sect had been waiting for a long time. It was clear that they were causing trouble on purpose. The divine ghost Immortal Fiend painting was merely an excuse to break the peace. No matter how Mo-Ching gave way, the other party would push their luck and press on. Right now there was no way out.
Fu.
Suddenly, Sect Master Whitebones laughed, cackling like a crow. He raised the divine ghost Immortal Fiend painting in his hands and looked at Mo-Ching and Yunju with his deep eyes, saying slowly, this painting as well as you guys all belong to me. I want the painting and I want the both of you as well.
Whoa!
When the Fiends of Whitebone's sect heard that, they howled and cheered. Mo-Ching seemed to have thought of something and her face turned pale. Yunju turned to look at Perfected Immortal Jing Yu and Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon on the other side and said in a deep voice, Are the two of you going to stand by idly? Don't forget, we're all from the Immortal Domain. If we die here, you won't be able to escape this calamity either. If the two Perfected Immortals could stand on their side, it would be an increase in strength no matter what. Do you dare to interfere? Sect Master Whitebones' sinister gaze shifted towards Xie Tianhong and the other two. Suddenly, Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon said, Everything is precarious in Avicii. There's no difference between immortals and fiends. Pausing for a moment he continued, I've long heard of your reputation, Sect Master Whitebones. If you don't mind, I can join Whitebones' sect and listen to your orders. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu glanced sideways with a look of surprise. Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon had a calm expression without any shame. The situation was pressing right now and he could only survive if he submitted temporarily. Although Perfected Immortal Jingyu understood the current situation as well, he had not expected Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon to submit so quickly and choose to join Whitebone's sect. On second thought, he understood that they had no choice. Everyone was trapped here and none of them could escape. If they could not escape death, how could there be any distinction between immortals and fiends? I'm willing to listen to your orders as well. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu bowed slightly. The wise understand their circumstances. Sect Master Whitebones nodded in satisfaction. Not far away, Su Zimo was still in a lotus position. He maintained that posture for a long time, as though he was immersed in something and had lost himself. Yunju glanced at Su Zimo but did not wake him up. Su Zimo was only at the cultivation of a heaven immortal. Even if he woke up, it would be useless. Fairies, come forward and sit beside me. Accompany me to take a look at this painting. Sect Master Whitebones beckoned to Mo-Ching and Yunju. Mo-Ching's expression was cold and she remained silent. Although Yunju could move freely, the poison had not been purged completely. Her body was limp and she did not have much strength. Ladies, let's go. Lustbone Fiend walked forward and made an inviting gesture to Mo-Ching and Yunju, saying with a smile, You've been invited by our sect master. Get lost. Yunju shouted coldly. Humph. Lustbone Fiend's gaze turned vicious as he laughed sinisterly. How dare you scold me? You're forcing me to use force. The moment he said that, Lustbone Fiend took a step forward and reached out to grab Yunju's arm. Mo-Ching's expression was cold and she no longer hesitated. She raised her hand and slapped the back of Lustbone Fiend's head. He. Right then, Madame Jade Bones's laughter sounded in Mo-Ching's ears. Beauty, don't make any reckless moves. Unknowingly, Madame Jade Bones had already arrived beside Mo-Ching and attacked consecutively, changing her martial techniques continuously to launch intensive attacks. Mo-Ching's bloodline and physique were extremely ordinary. Her entire dermic Tao was in her paintings. However, those paintings were useless in Avicii. She was no match for Madame Jade Bones in melee combat. Within a few rounds, Mo Qing's hands were locked by Madame Jade Bones and pinned behind her back. All her joints were restrained and she could not move at all. "Beauty, your face is so pretty. I really want to scratch a few holes on it and destroy it," Madame Jade Bones said coldly and extended her finger. Her sharp fingernails brushed past Mo Qing's cheek gently, emitting a chilling aura. On the other side, Lustbone Fiend grabbed Yunju's hands and laughed brazenly as well. When perfected Immortal Jing Yu saw that, he turned his head away instinctively and sighed internally. Who would have thought that the painting Immortal and book Immortal, fairies whom countless cultivators admired and tried to court, would be humiliated to such an extent? "You guys have a death wish." Right then, a voice sounded. Not far away, Su Zimo stood up slowly with a cold expression and a murderous aura as he walked towards Mo Qing and Yunju. Chapter 2340. 2340 die. 2340 die. The Fiends of Whitebones Sect looked over. Who would dare stand out and say something like that to them in this cave at a moment like this? When the gazes of the Fiends of Whitebones Sect landed on Su Zimo, they were slightly stunned. Almost everyone's attention was on the two fairies. Therefore, no one noticed the seemingly frail green-robed cultivator right from the beginning. At that moment, Su Zimo suddenly stood out with a torrential killing intent and said such domineering words. The Fiends of Whitebones Sect frowned slightly and could not figure out his background right away. One could not check the other party's cultivation realm in Avicii. The Fiends of Whitebones Sect did not know Su Zimo's cultivation either. However, Su Zimo must be a perfected immortal expert since he was able to travel with the two fairies. Madame Jade Bones chuckled. "Young man, don't be angry. Let go." Arriving beside the two fairies, Su Zimo interrupted Madame Jade Bones and glared at her and Lustbone Fiend coldly before saying. Lustbone Fiend narrowed his eyes slightly but was not enraged directly. He still gripped Yunju's hands and asked with raised brows, "What's your cultivation? How dare you speak to us like that?" He was stunned by Su Zimo's aura and was unsure for a moment, wanting to test the waters. "Fellow Daoist, don't worry. He's only a grade 2 heaven immortal." Not far away, Xie Tianhong understood what the fiends were thinking and stood out hurriedly. The Fiends of Whitebones Sect opened their mouths slightly with strange expressions. "Ha ha ha ha." Immediately, the fiends burst into laughter and looked at Su Zimo with mocking gazes, as though they were looking at an idiot. "I was wondering who he was. So, he's just an ant." Lustbone Fiend reared his head in laughter and scolded, "Bullshit low-level heaven immortal, there's no room for you to speak here. Scram. Die." Suddenly, Su Zimo said a single word. "How dare you show off your scrap metal in front of me?" Lustbone Fiend was fearless. Even sentient dermic treasures used by perfected immortals could not unleash much power in Avicii, let alone heaven-grade dermic treasures. Lustbone Fiend grabbed Yunju's wrist with one hand and struck the hell suppression tripod with the other. Poof! When Lustbone Fiend's fist collided with the hell suppression tripod, it exploded into a blood mist. His entire arm was smashed until his tendons and bones were snapped and his flesh splattered everywhere. Ah! Lustbone Fiend's expression changed starkly as he shrieked and retreated instinctively. Su Zimo strode forward and did not give him any chance to catch his breath. He raised the hell suppression tripod and smashed it towards the head of Lustbone Fiend. Poof! When the tripod descended, Lustbone Fiend's head was smashed and his essence spirit was destroyed, dying right away. Silence filled the cave. Everyone was shocked and froze on the spot. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu and Perfected Immortal Imperial Dragon exchanged glances. Both of them could see the deep meaning in the other's eyes and felt a sense of trepidation. They had not expected Su Zimo to have such a trump card. If Su Zimo had suddenly revealed such a move previously, there was a high chance that the two of them would have died on the spot if they were unprepared. The 14 Bone Fiends had all cultivated a portion of the White Bones Fiend Sutra. However, everyone cultivated different parts and the characteristics of their bodies and bones were different as well. The only similarity was that the 14 Bone Fiends were body-tempered experts among perfected fiends. However, no matter how strong their bones and bodies were, They could not defend against the power of the Hell Suppression Tripod. It was too fast. The Fiends of Whitebone's sect had no intention of attacking and were initially waiting to watch the show. To think that Lustbone Fiend would die tragically on the spot. The others did not even have time to save him. The Fiends had not expected that a low-level Heaven Immortal would dare to attack them in such a situation. Less than that, they had not expected Lustbone Fiend to be crushed to death in less than 2 rounds. With Lustbone Fiend dead and Yunju free, Su Zimo pulled Yunju over and shielded her behind him. Yunju was dumbfounded during the entire process. It's over. She quickly realized that Su Zimo would definitely die after killing one of the 14 Bone Fiends. He made use of the Hell Suppression Tripod to kill Lustbone Fiend by surprise. However, as long as the other party reacted, Su Zimo would not be able to defend against the encirclement of the Fiends of Whitebone's sect, even with the help of the Hell Suppression Tripod. Su Zimo was decisive to kill and smashed Lustbone Fiend to death. Without stopping, he took a huge stride and arrived beside Mo Qing. He raised the Hell Suppression Tripod and smashed it towards Madame Jade Bones. Watch out for that tripod. Suddenly, Sect Master Whitebone stood up and said sternly with a dark glint in his sunken eyes. Here most weapons would lose their strength. As for the bronze square tripod in Su Zimo's hands, it had defined edges and emitted an ancient and savage aura. It was powerful and sturdy, clearly unaffected by Avicii. There was a high chance that this bronze square tripod was an emperor weapon and might not be weaker than the bone saber in his hands. Even without the reminder of Sect Master Whitebones, Madame Jade Bones could sense how terrifying the Hell Suppression Tripod was. However, without being flustered, she moved her feet and locked Mo Qing's joints. Turning around, she used Mo Qing as a shield in front of her the entire time. You're still too inexperienced to want to kill me. Madame Jade Bones chuckled. 7 Bone Fiends had already advanced and charged towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo's gaze was burning. Suddenly, he hollered and released a dragon roar that contained a supreme might which enveloped down. Although the power of the dragon roar secret skill was reduced significantly without the use of heaven and earth essence chi, it still released an extremely domineering energy fluctuation. The 7 Bone Fiends shuddered and stopped in their tracks. Madame Jade Bones was the closest to Su Zimo and her mind buzzed from the shock. That momentary pause allowed Su Zimo to see an opening as the Hell Suppression Tripod descended. By the time Madame Jade Bones snapped out of her stupor, the Hell Suppression Tripod was above her head. Ah! She shrieked and could only retreat, unable to use Mo Qing as a shield in time. Crack! Madame Jade Bones was still a step too slow. Half of her shoulder was snapped by the Hell Suppression Tripod and her entire arm fell off, leaving her shoulder in a bloodied mess. Oh! Madame Jade Bones let out an ear-piercing scream. She had lost a lot of blood chi and her face was aging at a visible speed. In the blink of an eye, she turned into an old lady with a withered yellow face filled with wrinkles. This was her appearance to begin with. However, she maintained her youth by constantly absorbing the yang essence in the blood of virgin boys. Right now, she had lost a lot of blood chi and could not stop her injuries immediately, returning to her original state. You've ruined me! Madame Jade Bones shrieked with rage and killing intent in her eyes. Gritting her teeth, she said, "Little bastard, I'm going to kill you and suck your blood dry." Su Zimo had already saved Mo Qing and shielded her behind him. When he heard Madame Jade Bones's threat, he remained silent and merely sneered. He raised the Hell Suppression Tripod once more and smashed it towards her head. Madame Jade Bones's expression changed starkly, and she did not dare to take the Hell Suppression Tripod head-on. Right then, a figure appeared and shielded Madame Jade Bones. It's time to end things. Sect Master Whitebones descended and said indifferently. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.